We got invocation from First United Methodist.
No, we just have the work session first at 6 o'clock.
You want to do the work session first?
That's how we had it listed on the agenda.
Okay.
Don't want anyone to be confused with the,
I'll make an announcement on this work session, and we're gonna limit this thing to 30 minutes, which would be 20 minutes to 7 then. And then we're gonna cut off the conversation with regards to recycling and move on with our regular agenda. We keep it brief. Okay, we're going to start out with the work session then for recycling. Anybody want to come forward to the podium and make any comments? Public input?
Good evening, Josh Peterson with Petrick Sanitation, Zach Flood with Morgan Thaler. Good evening, Mayor, council members, City of Mitchell residents. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'd like to give you just a short, brief history, and it'll be short, about Petrick Sanitation. Petrick Sanitation has been providing trash collection service in eastern South Dakota for 21 years, including 16 years in the City of Mitchell. Petrick Sanitation services residential, commercial, rural customers in the City of Mitchell, Davidson County, as well as surrounding counties. We also service other city area trash collection contracts, as well as other government-based contracts. Petrick Sanitation is well established in the City of Mitchell, Davidson County. We live here, our employees live here. A question was brought up at the last meeting about the current old landfill building. We would love to rent that facility and use it for the recycling if we were given the opportunity for the contract. We want to clarify a little bit about some different container sizes. Initially, we chose the 96-gallon container based off our customer's request of either not having enough room for the recyclable items or things blowing out of their current items because they're oversized cardboard, things like that. And it being the same size as most City of Mitchell residents' trash collection container. I was taking the kids to school last Thursday, and within about a 3-block area around my neighborhood, I just took a few pictures of the recycling containers that were out there, the people that were utilizing the containers. You guys can kind of pass them around. Some of them are oversized things inside the containers. The big concern is before they get picked up, the items in there, there's nothing that's holding those items inside that container. The wind picks up, blows them around. That's just some of the, and I won't call them complaints, but some of the issues that were brought up from our trash collection customers. Other South Dakota towns use the 96-gallon and the 64-gallon container for the recycling and have had great success. I had an opportunity to go to a couple different towns this last week. I photographed some of their containers that are in use. The ones from Brookings was after a snowstorm, so there's snow sitting on top of them, so I don't want you to think they're not utilizing them, but there was a snowstorm that morning, but I did want to get a few pictures just so you've got an idea of what some of the other towns are utilizing. If you feel the 96-gallon is too big, we would offer the 64-gallon, 48, or the 35-gallon option. They're out in the hallway to take a look at. We did bring them in so you guys could take a look. If you choose the 64, the 48, or the 35-gallon container, we would not be able to use those with, I think what they referred to at the last council meeting as the one-armed bandit type of thing. They don't make a clamp that can dump those in the side dump garbage truck. We would either have to modify something or do something in the machine shop. So anything other than the 96-gallon container would be on the rear load trash truck. We have both of those trucks in service, so it wouldn't be anything that we would be adding, but we would just, I don't want you, lead you in a way that we're gonna use a side dump garbage truck and here we are using a rear load. Again, the container size is your choice. If awarded the recycling contract, we would employ an additional 8 to 10 employees. We would encourage the current recycling contract employees to apply for the newly created positions. There was a question on how we would handle our competitors' cardboard. We would set up an appointment with that customer and discuss their recycling needs and kind of see what their bases are and see what we can offer for them. If given the opportunity, we would work hard for the city of Mitchell. I want to thank you for your time and consideration. Does anybody have any questions?
I think one of the issues that was brought up, and I just want to clear the air and make sure that everybody's on the same page, and I'm not bringing this up, but I heard it, so I'm going to, therefore I'm going to bring it up, was a no-compete issue. And I guess, because the city does operate its garbage, and you also operate a garbage plan, I think we would want to clarify that there is a no-compete issue that would go with this.
Okay. And what we have now, we have customers that would go from the city to Petrick, and we have customers that go from Petrick to the city. They go back and forth. It's something, we can talk to Kevin or someone from the street department or Pam. It's just what people do. They switch occasionally. And that's something that's been going on for the last 16 years. Do we gain any more than we had before? No, they just kind of switch back and forth. If people have rental properties, they have that option to, choose the city or us. And, it's like your cable or internet. There's different options out there. And, I don't know if there's one reason or another that they would choose someone else, but it's something that's been going on for quite some time.
When you indicated those 3 different sizes, is it one of the 3 or could it be a combination of the 3?
What we would do is like you guys to pick a size, and if we had a customer that wanted another container, we would give them another container of that size.
Does that mean they have a choice?
You guys have the choice. You guys let us know what size you want. If a customer's constantly filling, say the 96-gallon, they have a daycare center and things like that, they call, we would give them another 96-gallon container, and we would dump it with that first one. If they requested it, yep. Yeah.
Then the next question would be is if we went with the 96 or we went with the 64. And the customer said, I don't want one that big, I would want just the small one. Is that going to be something then that would be workable?
We would take it case by case. And with these containers, there's going to be lids, there's going to be wheels, and the lids are going to be different sizes. So, I don't know that we want to carry, a bunch of different sizes. We're going to make it work to the customer. But, our goal is if they want, a different size, I would try to work it in with what we have. That's about all I can tell you.
The single stream, the main thing is they want to prevent having to use different equipment on the truck to pick up the can. So with the different sizes, if we start having 4 different sizes out in the use in the public, it becomes problematic for the trucks to be able to pick the cans up. So ideally, they would like the council to pick one size, and if that they're outside, if you'd like to see them, just right outside the door. And whatever size you ultimately come to, if they need more, they certainly are available. And if you wanted it, there was concerns about pickup, you could certainly go with the smaller size that is on wheels, and it looks about like the city garbage can. I thought it was a garbage can at first.
I think it would be interesting for everyone to see those. And I also have to say that I've heard from a number of people. I've had phone calls, I've had just one, like at 5 o'clock tonight. And now we have a letter here in front of us here as well, and a number of notifications then that came through City Hall. And I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing families say, some of them, one in particular that I got a phone call, she said, we're a family of 5. We have 3 children. We go through 2 gallons of milk a day. And she said, I don't recycle currently because she said, I wouldn't begin to go in a single blue tub. She said, there's no point. She said, I'd be happy to recycle if I had a big enough container. But I've also heard from somebody else that just said, I like my little blue box. You know, I don't want anything bigger. I don't want anything bigger that I have to store. So, I mean, I'm hearing from both ends of the spectrum.
The one point I want to make, though, is if we do go with these bigger containers, that will be single stream, and that particular person will not have to sort anything, you just dump it all in. Would you like us to bring the containers in so you guys can take a look at them, or just right outside the hall, or, I think visual would likely help. I mean, they're not that big, it'll take us just a brief second.
Okay, we'll grab them.
Tim, what are the sizes of our containers that we currently have for garbage?
We have approximately a 35, a 60, and a 90.
Okay, and then the 35, is that picked up with the one-armed bandit?
I believe it is. I asked Kevin that today, and I think they have special equipment.
Kevin's shaking his head back there, and his,
The state of fabricating our little machining.
but then you can pick up, you use the same truck for all 3 containers. And if you're at home, Kevin Roth is shaking his head up and down.
This is obviously the biggest one, the 96 gallon. This goes down, I believe this is 64. Then we start getting pretty small down to the, looks like a 38. And this is a 36, 35, excuse me.
That's the 35.
And I do know that Dependable wants some of this 30 minutes.
Any other questions for us?
Thank you for bringing them in.
Is there someone else from the audience that would like to address the podium?
My name is Nancy Torgerson. I spoke with you on the phone, Mayor Toomey.
What was the name again? I'm sorry.
Nancy Torgerson. I called the mayor because last time this issue was before the council, and I don't remember, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, it's been a long time, I said nothing because I thought, hallelujah, Mitchell's getting on board. And nothing changed. When I talked with the mayor, I told him that I put about only half of my recycling in the bin. Well, it's been 10 days since I talked to the mayor. Actually, maybe a fourth of what I could recycle goes in that bin. The 3/4 is going to the landfill. I have a sister who lives in a small town in Minnesota. Granted, that's a different state. Her town has only 1,000 people. They've been doing single stream recycling for 10 years. Mitchell can do better. You have to keep in mind, those containers might look a little bit scary and heavy, but your recycling weighs like 0 compared to what you put in your garbage. And if you have the container for the yard waste, those suckers are heavy. Putting one of these out is really not going to be a problem because what you're putting in it doesn't weigh as much. The other thing I would like to say, Mitchell has the new brand, the new slogan, Mitchell is outside expectations. Let's stand up and make it that way. And one way to start is recycling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, all. Mike from Dependable Sanitation. I think you all know me, but I only got a few points I want to make. Nothing to do with the cans, nothing to do with the way we pick it up. We will put out more containers. You can have more than one. You can bag it. You can box it. Anything that's knowledgeable that we know it's recycling, we'll pick it up. So that's not really a good excuse. But what I want to tell you is the year before, prior to last year, we handled about 1,000 tons of material at a cost of $237,000. That's $237 a ton to handle all the recyclables, get it to market, process it, the whole 9 yards. Last year, and this, if we had to bid again, the bid is $285,000, and we run, excuse me, 1,200 tons towards the end of last year. This was a whole year, but so we're going in on a 1,200 ton volume into the coming year. And with the new bid, that works out to $238 a ton. We're within $1, less than $1 of what we did it before because we've got more volume. What you're looking at with a single stream, a $289,000 bid, and they said they'd pick the cardboard up on the curb, but I have 75 commercial accounts of Minimas that I pick up. They're not going to get picked up no more, I guarantee you. Minima's not going to work with the other hauler. So we're down to 500 tons of actual curbside that we pick up because we got 700 tons of cardboard that we pick up. We put 1,000 pounds a day on the truck curbside. That amounts to 630 tons. You divide that into $289,000 bid. Now you get a cost of $460 a ton to have your recyclables taken care of. You're doubling the cost by going to this system. If there's no cardboard picked up, it's up at $579 a ton. We've held that cost for you. You're looking at doubling the cost to get a can. And I think there's optional ways of getting cans. I think I've discussed it with some of the people. The incentive to recycle with these cans is absolutely nothing. It's a nicer can. Yeah, we can put more stuff in it, but we also get more contaminants in it. We got a bigger can, we can stuff more things in it we think are recyclable. If it was me doing the hauling and I was picking it up that way, I'd want them cans to be half empty, half full, however you look at it. Because the less stuff I pick up, it's the less I got to handle, it's the less I got to take to Millennium and pay $25 a ton to dispose of. The way we pick it up, the incentive for us is to get more volume on the curb because we make part of our income off of that, $70,000 a year last year, way down. But we have an incentive to go after more material, whether it's commercial, which is our main goal lately, is to go after more of the commercial material. So there is incentive in our system. There's no incentive in this system. It's going to go down the road, get rid of it. That's it. One of the other things I forgot last time is we also do e-waste collection, recycling. That's TVs, computers, all the old e-waste. We do that at no cost to the city. We charge customers to bring it to us. We process it, ship it on to Janesville, Wisconsin for recycling. And we do quite a bit of it, to tell you the truth. I want to read you, I'll try to make this brief. This was an email I got Friday from Pierre, City of Pierre, Val Keller, who's solid waste superintendent. She says, we've been having issues with our recycling facility not being able to take recyclables that we collect in our voluntary drop-off recycling bins. And these are sorted bins. They got compartments. So ultimately, we had to take 30% of the material we collected into our baling facility and dispose of it in the landfill. As of January 1st, 2016, we had to start paying $25 a ton to their local hauler, which is Waste Connections, owns Envirotech. That material goes to Millennium. Millennium charges $25 a ton. She also defined it in another email that they charge 71 cents per home to offset those costs of getting that material over to the recycler. They're too busy, can't take their material, so they had a landfill. Got a response from the city of Sioux Falls, the landfill manager. And he said, this is a nationwide issue, but sounds like markets are recovering a little. Locally in Sioux Falls, both MRFs, that's the material recovery facility, recyclers, started charging for recyclables and also added on contamination fee. That means whatever they decide they didn't want, they're going to charge you extra for it. I know one is charging our MSW tipping fee at $37 a ton, and I've heard various fees from the other. What we are hearing from our facilities is they can process more material, but the material is so contaminated, this is single stream, remind you, with markets being low and the contamination high, their profits in some cases are losses. This is City of Sioux Falls again. I also heard of some facilities around the U.S. that are ending their recycling programs or just collecting certain materials. In the end, it's about education with the customer, keeping the recyclables clean. And another issue is packaging is getting lighter. Sioux Falls is going to weather the storm, and the community is going to stay with their system they have right now. If your customer citizens are willing to pay, then this shouldn't be an issue. But if they're not, the programs will suffer. And he went on a little about China, but most of Europe did not go with single stream programs, and hence their materials are cleaner. So Europe has a leg up on the U.S. with cleaner materials. And that's my battle. The way we pick it up, we have cleaner materials. That's the only way we've been able to sell this material. If you go to Mercer, Sioux Falls, you'll see the papers contaminated with plastics. That's part of driving the markets down and what happened. Also, just one other quick item. Since our last meeting, the quarterly grant program just put out or awarded some grants. Huron got $21,000, 100% grant for equipment purchase for loading recyclables. City of Yankton applied for $850,000 for the recycling solid waste collection equipment, which includes $275,000 grant, 32% match. That's money they don't have to pay back. And Vermillion got $150,000. Walworth County got $250,000. So if this is really something you want to look at, my suggestion is cities should be doing it themselves. You should buy the containers. You got the trucks already. You got the transfer station. You got everything to do it yourself, and you can get this free money to help support it, to back it, to get it started. So I'm suggesting, I don't want to do it because I can't afford to do it. There's not enough money in it, but you already have the expertise, you have the equipment, you have the building. You could go around and pick this up yourself with automated trucks and get half of your containers, half of your truck paid for. You're going to pay for it in this contract if you award it for the
I'm
single
going to have to
stream.
cut you off in about 1 minute here, Mike.
Okay.
We got a line of people there, and we got 7 minutes to go.
All right, I'm done. That's about all I got to say.
One question.
Yes.
What's contamination? Define contamination.
It could amount to cardboard soaked in oil, wet paper, tennis shoes, diapers, anything that'll go in that can, which we have about a 10 to 15% contamination in our single stream in Watertown. We used to have 2. When we went to single stream, we had 1 container at the end of the sorting line. We dumped about once a day. Now we got 5 at the end of the sorting line, and we dump it 2-3 times a day. There's just too much junk in it. Whether the people are accidentally put it in the wrong container, or they're all sitting side by side, they throw the trash, or the kids go out, or the one's closer to the door, I'm not going to go to the other one. Wrong kind of plastic, put a plastic truck in there, they put, you name it, it's in there. Okay?
Thank you, Mike.
You bet. Thank you.
Next.
Dan Ware, I live east of Hitchcock Park, and last fall I kind of did a drive-around study from First and Foster, 4 blocks east to, the apartment houses on East First, and First and Foster south to the Foster Street Bridge. I counted 150 houses. I only counted 30 tubs that were sitting out in front of the houses. Now, Dependable was out in Wild Oaks picking up, so they hadn't gotten to that area yet. But I've talked to neighbors, and they've said that their tub got so dirty they had to wear gloves to carry it out to the street. But Dependable suggested taking it to a car wash and washing it themselves. They couldn't get a new one. One guy told me he'd come home every Friday night, which is our garbage day. He picked up recyclable stuff off of his front yard, put it in the tub, and then when the recycle people come around, he made a point to be home one Friday, and they would just, what wasn't recyclable, the guy would just throw it in his yard. And they wouldn't pick it up, so he just picked up his tub, threw it in there, walked over, dumped it in the garbage, took his tub in the house, and he'll never recycle again if that's the type of service he gets. And I think that's part of the trouble is, we don't have customer service. If my garbage barrel, if the wheels fall off of it, within a week, I've got a new one set in front of my house. Dependable, you almost have to beg them for a new tub. I drove out there one day, and Mike told me that I shouldn't have let my tub blow away. And I went to get one off the pile, and I was informed that the pile I was taking them off of was for new houses, new customers. So he gave me a tub that was actually smaller than the one that blew away. And that's the one I've been using. I'd like to see something big enough that I can get my recyclable stuff in with a lid so it doesn't blow away, so I don't have to in the spring pick stuff up out of my hedges and the yard and everything. So hopefully you'll go with Petrick. I have no association with Petrick at all, but I'd like to see something more modern. We've done this blue tub thing for 10 years or whatever, and apparently they're not upgrading their system. Yeah, I know, we're running late. Anyway,
Got to cut you off, Dan.
go with Petrick.
Thank you. Next.
Hello. Hi, I'm John Schmidt from Woonsocket, South Dakota. I'm the only climate reality leader in the state of South Dakota. And, you know, if you would like to call on me, if you need any help crunching numbers or anything, I'm wondering myself, have you considered the whole point, the whole purpose of recycling? Why are we doing it? That's a question.
Yes, we have. In fact, it was discussed. At least I've looked at research that if you've got a truck, your stored recyclables more than X amount of miles, 100, 200, 300, et cetera, if you have to store them for extended periods of time in a heated building, if you drive thousands of miles per year picking them up and only get 600 tons or 700 tons, and then have to truck them thousands of miles to actual places that can recycle them, the energy mass balance from an environment standpoint, and if you want to call it CO2 emissions or call it whatever you want, is probably negative. So the whole option of, if we're really trying to be nice to the environment, the best choice might be to not pick any of them up.
Yeah.
But I've heard from people on, we want this, we want that, I like what I want something changed. If my bin could have a lid, it would be great, et cetera, et cetera. But almost everyone, well, I've had two, but almost everyone has said, I think recycling is the right thing to do and don't eliminate it.
Yeah.
But I find it hard to show them the energy mass balance that, and I know it's possible to do, but it never was an item in front of this board. We were going to have recycling, and recycling's good, and that's.
You know, we've been
That's the way it goes.
taught for years and years that it's a good thing to recycle, and I believe it is. But when you calculate everything in, you know, maybe, I don't know if using a train instead of truck to move it was calculated in, or smashing it to, you know, compact. I'm sure you probably already do that. But if you take, you know, 1 gallon of diesel, I mean, you're putting over 22 pounds of CO2 in the atmosphere. And, gasoline is slightly better, but, so you have to know, for your pound of plastics, the same calculations, and it sounds like you've gone through some of those numbers.
I've seen them and have gone through them, but I don't have all of the other tonnage and specific information and I don't know their trucking distance and how long they're stored and those types of things. But it could be done, but it makes me question whether or not we're truly energy ahead by running a recycling program that only gets 1,200 tons or 600 tons or 500 tons of miscellaneous and 700 tons of cardboard.
And the one other thing before you continue that Steve did not mention is some of that stuff, as we heard, gets contaminated and you can't recycle it, or some of it, the price is so low and you can't recycle it. So even that tonnage is not an accurate reflection of how much is actually recycled.
Well,
Yes, it is. It isn't accurate. That is what is actually recycled. That's what we actually pick up, bale, and sell.
So you take nothing to the landfill ever?
I can show you our records. We take to the landfill less than 1,000 pounds a month, and that's mostly plastic bags. Very little of what we pick up goes in there.
Okay, so some stuff goes to the landfill.
Very little. And that's stuff that there is no place to recycle.
here's,
That's my point, Mike.
here's another way to look at this. Let's say, and I don't like to scrap a whole, recycling thing, but look at the cost of how much it costs you to do that. And take that money and put it towards educating the populace and also setting up, going solar, starting to set up these buildings so you're going with solar energy. Go with large-scale utility type, solar type energy. Have plug-in areas for people that are traveling the state. Use that as a way to keep people here for a longer period of time so they'll buy your products when you're here. These type of ideas, may be a better way to spend the money instead of just because I can tell you, I've studied for over a half decade now, and it's part of the reason I got involved with Climate Reality. And I'm in the hub where I can talk to scientists and paleontologists. It's really not looking good. We got to do something different, and we need to do it immediately.
Excuse me for interrupting, but we're 3 minutes over the allotted time right now. Now, if the council wants to proceed with this is your guys' call. We're 3 minutes over right now.
I think we've got your point.
Yeah, well, I guess I got my point in, so thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to cut it off right now, and we're going to begin in with our regular council meeting, and we're going to do invocation from First United Methodist. Is there someone here?
Gracious God, we are all frail human beings. We come into this place to make the best decisions we can, so I pray that you would pour out your Spirit upon the men and women of this table and the men and women that are here in this room. God, we ask for your wisdom in all that we do. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Michelle, roll call.
Olson.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
Cronus.
Here.
Robinson.
Here.
Barrington. Allen.
Here.
Charts. Smith.
Approval of the consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items.
I don't have anything to remove, but I just want to comment, looking at the cash balances and other stuff as we end 2016, and I understand not everything's totally in yet, but close to everything's in. We might have some actual bills next time, but from a cash balance and where our enterprise funds and other stuff look, they actually look pretty good. Also, in that part is our third penny sales and first and second penny sales, and we're a couple $100,000 short from where we wanted to be, and I think we just need to make sure we remember that.
Mayor, I was just going to mention also, not taking anything out, but we've got a new report in with the department reports with the code enforcement. And I think that's a very good report to be able, we got to stay very vague, obviously, for privacy and confidentiality concerns. But given the fact of just showing the amount of items that he's working on and locations, I think is good. And I look forward to reading that monthly. And I think other people in the community, now that we've got our new code enforcement policy in place, that we'll be able to kind of monitor as we go forward. But I do like that report. Thanks for putting that in.
Yep, thanks for your comments, sir, Jeff.
Jeff, I do have one question, and it's for Wade and not expect to be answered this time, but I notice on that report that there's some repeaters from week to week or several times during the month that we did them. My question, and I'm wondering if we know which ones are elderly and maybe not capable of doing the shoveling themselves and are just having us be their shovel people for them, or which ones, or are they just not shovel?
The only ones that, on the repeating ones, are the houses that are on foreclosures or vacant, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do we go out there? Is it dusting? Is it 1 inch? Is it 2 inch?
Yeah,
What's
the
the
ordinance
number?
states any formation of ice and snow.
So on a dusting, if, like we had last week, if it isn't done, you guys can go out there and do it. Okay.
Yep.
As the question was brought, and I wasn't sure exactly what that measurement would be. So
Yeah.
thank you.
I had some neighbors who panicked at the radio report that after the big snow, the inch or inch and a half, they were going to come out and do enforcement when it had snowed just the previous night.
No, it's,
So do we time that in any way?
on the last one, I think we were over the 48, but we knew the storm was coming on the weekend, so we held off and waited till Tuesday for this week. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah, because I got an earful from my neighbor who was out and said, I mean, it snowed an hour ago, and they're going to come out at 8 o'clock, and
No.
I'm going to get charged for opening this up, and they didn't come out 2 days ago when there was actually snow, and he was a little worked.
No, we actually left the Nixle alone with that because we want people to scoop their sidewalks rather than us. So we just left it be, and then we put out a new Nixle that we'd be 8 o'clock Tuesday morning.
Anything else? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All those in favor? Well, before I move on to that, is there any public comment on that? Any public comment at all? Okay. If not, let's do roll call.
Smith. Allen.
Aye.
Barrington. Robinson.
Aye.
Tronis.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Okay, approved. Citizens' input. If you need to address the mayor and the members of the city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium and state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Anyone from the public? Let's come forward. If not, hearing none,
I do have one item. I put on your desk this morning, or this evening, it's not morning, the work session times, and I did not have one time that was going to work for the majority, so I believe you guys could see if one of these on there would work for the January 30th, that time. and Dan said we could go ahead and move on without him,
Yeah, I'll
so.
be, gone.
Well, from what I can see, the only time they had the most people was from 6 to 8, but that misses Bev. So I don't know if there's a time, 6:30 to 8:30, I didn't have Dave or Mel.
Well, I could stretch to that if that's,
So if you could go 6:30 to 8 too, both of you, Dave and Mel, I could do that time frame, 6:30 to 8:30.
I'd be okay with that.
Does that work? Okay, thank you.
Then I have one thing, if nobody else does. I've been in contact with Representative Rosem over our contract issue, and she is going to forward to me a final version of the bill when they get it done. The fly in the buttermilk is the LRC says if we change it for us, it changes for the state as well. And then it becomes an issue of, you're doing a project in Mitchell, is that the local provider, what the deal is. And so she suggested an alternative might be to include time clauses. If you can't deliver the goods within a half an hour or whatever, then your bid is not acceptable. And I took a little initiative and said, I'd like you to make a run at this anyway and see what people say. If we have to do it the other way, we have to do it the other way. But it would not help us on, there's been some controversy in the press about the pool bid. And that would be an example of somebody within a percentage. And you could go lower, that wouldn't have anything to do with fuel. But anyway, we're dickering back and forth on that.
Any other comments? Now we'll move on to the hearing on the application of Overtime Steakhouse and Sports Bar for a special event liquor license located at Overtime Event Center for the 2017 Mitchell Chamber and Development Corporation Annual Recognition Night on January 20th, 2017.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Board of Adjustment, I would entertain a motion for the City Council to recess and sit as a Board of Adjustment.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. First action is to set the date for the Board of Adjustment hearing for February the 6th, 2017. Stephanie Kampshoff has applied for a conditional use permit to operate a family residential care center in her home located at 622 South Minnesota Street, legally described as Lot 8 in south 46 feet of Lot 9, Block 7, Van Epps, 2nd edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reconvene as City Council. Entertain a motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn and the City Council to reconvene in regular session.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is action to approve a bid for City Recycling Project 2017-2.
Can we just start with, I've still got a couple questions.
Sure, go ahead.
And I guess maybe a couple of them were answered, but I'm not sure. This deals with Petrick, and the bid says that we have to have a facility and a drop-off point that's open from 8 a.m. to noon, Monday through Saturday. And I guess my question to Petrick is, where will that facility be? If you're chosen, will that be the old landfill building?
That's correct. It'll be the old city building.
Okay. And then you also commented that you will offer the commercial generators plan for pickup of recyclable accounts. That's also item 16G in the bid document.
Are you talking the hospitals and schools, et cetera?
It says the contractor shall submit a plan to offer commercial generators an outlet and/or pickup of recyclable materials from commercial accounts.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
So there will be something that Petrick would do to offer that to pick up.
Yeah, I believe the understanding is that's on an individualized basis if they want the service or not.
Right, but the offer still has to be made. They don't have to accept, but there still needs, whoever is chosen needs to make that offer that they'll pick those up.
Yes, and they fully intend to do so if Petrick was awarded the bid. We
Okay.
discussed that at length.
Okay?
I guess my question then right away with that is because I am a commercial spot, and I'm a small commercial spot, but to me it's important. I put out a lot of cardboard. We collect a lot of plastic. We're very good about recycling at our little store. Rob Shortstop is, we just think it's the right thing to do. So I would want to know that I'm not going to be charged for that stop.
Well,
Granted, in our case, I mean, our home stuff goes there as well, so it's one stop for them, but I want to know, that it's going to be done and that's not going to be an extra fee then.
Well, it's not in the bid that way.
Well, and that's why I'm asking. I want to know how it's going to be done before we commit to something.
Well, if we needed to have and know that either or, it would have had to been in the bid when it was bid.
I guess I didn't put out the bid specs.
Well, but
I want to know at this point how commercial.
That's fine.
I'm just echoing your question.
Sure. I know, but go ahead.
I'm just echoing your question. I mean, I realize that you go to a hospital or you go to Toshiba or you go to Innovative or whatever. I mean, there may be a lot greater quantities in some or all of them. I'm guessing so. But for me, with my little business, and I'm certain that I speak for a lot of small businesses in Mitchell, which is important to our city. We all try to do our best for our city. We want to know, are we going to be able to have those services?
You will be, but it's my understanding that the bid was bid at a additional fee. It wasn't factored into the numbers and the specs we were given to calculate the bid for the residential. I believe it is determined by the zoning of the property, in other words, as far as what fee. And the container size, I believe, it will be a 3 cubic yard container, and if you need multiple, I guess that would change the price of that. But I believe that's how the bid specs were drawn up.
So how does that work in gallons?
There's a reason I'm a lawyer, I'm not an engineer, I don't know.
Well, I ask about the size because many elderly people are concerned about the size, and, some people have contacted me and said, well, that's a straw man because everybody has the 96-gallon bin, and that's not true. And when Ron Olson was here before he retired, he testified on a different subject, that the city actually goes to those elderly homes and picks them up as opposed to doing the street service. So are we talking 35, 65, 96, 417? I mean, what's the number?
Are you talking about the residential or the commercial?
Yeah, residential.
Well, the residential, we proposed the 4 different sizes on behalf of Petrick of the 35-gallon container, 48, I believe, don't quote me.
Consumer choice.
Yeah, well, we would prefer the council to pick a size, and if they need multiple bins, Petrick's glad to give that. But for the practicality of picking them up, if 4 different sizes are on the streets, the trucks won't be able to pick up all the different containers. So, for instance, if you went with a 64, if somebody needed 2, they can have 2.
I've got one other follow-up question. Also in the bid document, it talks about reports and records. And I guess my question is if, and maybe the first question, the material will be transported to Sioux Falls, to Millennium? Is that
It's
true
gonna be
or not?
It's going to be on a bid process. It's like anything, the product value goes up and down. So we're going to find a buyer that's going to give us the best
So
value.
potentially go there? maybe.
Possibly.
Okay.
I mean, there's a number of places that will take that type of material. It's all going to be based on the price at that time.
Okay. So my question goes to the reporting, and that the summary of tonnages of the recycled materials recovered by material needs to be reported back to the city. And my question is, if it all goes into a single stream and gets dumped and hauled to somebody else to sort, how are they going to know the material they're sorting is from Mitchell and be able to report the cardboard, plastic, glass, et cetera, back for the reporting requirements.
And some of that, like, again, it depends on the market. Some of that stuff will be not shipped to a certain place. If we do happen to ship it to a different place, it would be placed in a container. That container would be weighed, but it may be a mixture of different materials. It may not just be a certain type of material.
I think one of the disadvantages you may find with single stream, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a disadvantage, but different, is that you may not get quite precise breakdowns of what every individualized recycling item would be, mainly because that's done at their facility, but you would definitely have accurate measure of the total tonnage of weight recycling.
Can we
I agree, okay, yeah,
Sorry.
thank you, that's all the questions I got.
Can we clarify again on single stream? I think last time Dependable said they do single stream, but it's done on the curb. Is that correct? Is that a correct statement?
That's essentially correct, yes. It's all set out in one basket, we just sort it at the curb.
And we heard last time that Millennium, or whatever they're called, 20% of what they get is no longer recyclable because of the contamination. So if you report, for math purposes, 1,000 tons, can we just assume that 200 tons of it is going to the landfill?
We can't, you know, those numbers are based off of what a competitor told you. We don't have those numbers. But, you know, we got to look at, I don't know if that number is true. We don't have anything to go off that number is true. That's the thing.
You had 2 weeks to find out if it was true.
There's some national numbers out there, but again, I don't want to put South Dakota in a national number. I mean, we're a different state. We operate differently.
I was under the impression this was a Sioux Falls facility.
We may not take it to Sioux Falls. It all depends on the market and the product that we have. It's
So
like
you've
gold.
said that several times. Where
Right,
else would you go?
There's
Mount
other.
Vernon?
No, there's other places that take the recycling. It all depends on the bid or the number
Okay.
that they give us.
I understand that, and maybe this is a more difficult question than I intend, but like where? Minneapolis, Omaha, Watertown? You say there's several places it could go. I'm just interested in hearing what those couple other places might be. It gets to Steve's earlier point, if we're going to truck it to, you know, last time, they talked about, Dependable talked about having to take glass to the East Coast, and you go, well, my goodness, why are we recycling that? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
No, we'll take it to wherever can pay the most for it. And we'll go
Like-
to Minnesota.
like where?
We'll go to the Twin Cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, it all
Wherever
depends.
it's paying.
It's like gold and silver. I mean, everything goes up and down, and as a business owner, you want to get the best value you can, because then you can in return pass it on to your customers.
I mean, if it comes down to the bottom line, if they were gonna ship it all straight to Sioux Falls, the bid might have to be higher, because you're gonna take it in shorts unless you go somewhere else to get a higher return on your investment.
And Bev, on your question on the cardboard and things, we're going to meet with those commercial customers and see what their needs are and work something out. I mean, if you're getting it picked up now, we're going to make sure that you're getting it picked up in the future as well.
Well, and it is a question for me. I mean, I pay for the recycling, of course, at my home.
Right.
I'm sorry. I pay for the recycling, of course, at my home. However, I never have you stop at my home. It's right next door to my business.
Right.
It all gets put in bins over there, and it's all sorted, and it's all ready to just be taken out. But it's, you know, it's kept inside, it's kept clean. But I'm paying for recycling at my home. Do I want to then be told that because I'm a commercial customer and I'm putting out a lot more recyclables, which should be a higher value to you, a lot more cardboard, a lot more paper, which, you know, a lot more plastic, then do I want to be told then that, okay, we're not picking up at your home, so, but you're still going to have to pay for that, but you're going to have to start paying extra because you're a commercial customer? I certainly don't want to do that. Those of us that are in small business
Right.
have a difficult time anyway, a lot of times, with what are, you know, solid expenses.
Yep. And we're going to take that, I mean, we're a small business just like you. We're going to take that all into consideration. I mean, the end of the day, as long as somebody gets a value for what they have, that's kind of the business goal for everybody.
I think the alternate was more intended for bigger, say, just the hospital, for instance. They wouldn't be able to feasibly economically pick it up for the $3 a month or whatever. So that's where I think the extra fee comes in with the mass amount of recycling that somebody like the hospital may have versus a residential or small business.
Well, and that's an understanding, that other small businesses are going to want to have. And I don't believe that I know we're not the only small commercial business that does recycle for a recycling company. Okay, thank you.
Mike Erickson, can you come up?
Yes, sir.
Mike, I want to hit you what I hear from a majority of people out there, maybe not a majority, but some of the people out there, is the customer service. How can Dependable do a little better job of what they do? Tell me what you can do for Mitchell.
Well, just tonight I was looking at your website, and I think we need to update some stuff on the city's website of what we take. I mean, it's fairly current. I've heard about some complaints. Usually they're handled locally here by the manager. If it isn't taken care of, my phone number is real easy to get a hold of. When Ron Olson was here, Ron used to call me and let me know. He said, we got a problem. You need to take care of it. It got done the same day. Otherwise, Ron was right after me. I haven't had a call from City Hall or anybody down here in probably last 2 years.
Mike, that's not true, because I sent you a phone call about 6 months ago regarding an incident on East Fifth Street.
Yep. That was the only one that was taken care of, I believe.
And I never heard a response back how it was taken care of.
Okay, I'm sure it was taken care of, but all you have to do is call me. I got a after-hours number, I got email, whatever it takes. If I got to take care of the problem, it shouldn't get as far as me, but if it does, it'll be responded to. But I think we need to do some more, upgrading education and customer service. If I have to hire somebody to actually do customer service, I mean, we need to get out there and get all the incidents I heard from this lady. Those don't get to me. I don't know about them. I can't make them right if I don't know about them. If they didn't get taken care of or they didn't call our office here, obviously they're not going to be solved. But it's pretty easy to get in touch with us. One thing I heard here about the commercial, we do pick up all these commercial, including the hospital. I think we got 15 stops that we do, some of them daily. And we don't charge for any of those. There's no fee, even though that's built into the contract. I've never charged you, and I've never charged any businesses to pick up commercial recycling. It's all done at no cost to all the commercial businesses here. Some of them have bought their own containers, but we don't charge them for their service. And some of them are pretty big, the schools, the hospital. I just got a call from Toshiba last week, Thursday or Friday. They're confronted with a zero waste policy from corporate, and I'm trying to work with the gentleman there I can't solve that problem totally, but there might be some stuff we can do for them.
Mike, and that same gentleman called me yesterday, he said that, obviously complaints are getting to you, but I just hear. He would like you to have your number, if it could work with the city of Mitchell, your number on the complaints of the building. For complaints with Dependable Recycling, call this number in Aberdeen, where you're out of, and would it get handled in a timely manner?
Sure, not a problem. I mean, I service 50-some communities and 14 counties. I get a lot of calls. A lot of them ask for me personally. I got no problem. My number's on your contract. You can publish it anywhere you want. You can put it on your website. I mean, if it's a problem, they got to call me. It'll get taken care of.
Can I ask another question, Mike?
Sure.
One complaint that I've heard repeatedly is how do I find out what is acceptable and what is not? Because sometimes they say things are picked up and sometimes they're not. And the question was, when was the last time that Dependable Sanitation has ever put out a door hanger or flyer making us aware of what they will or will not pick up? Because in the contract, your contract says that the contractor will allocate and spend an average of at least $300 per month for the purpose of developing an overall promotional plan. Should this not include educational information for the public? And
Yeah.
where and how is this $300 per month being spent? My question.
Most of it's been on newspaper ads and publicity we've done there. I don't think we've updated any flyers because nothing's changed, but we need to get new stuff out. We did have, when we first started, we have a sheet we put out with a new bin that describes everything they're supposed to be able to put in there.
When was the last time you had a newspaper ad?
I'm not aware. I couldn't tell you. It's been a while because there hasn't been anything going on, to tell you the truth, but.
Well, I can't tell you when either. That's why I'm asking, when and how is the $300 per month being spent?
Okay, I can't answer that question without going back and looking at my books, but, you know, we're willing to upgrade all that stuff. We have a little sheet that we used when we had to leave something in a bin, we'd check it, but I had problems with employees, and in fact, I got a letter from Ron years ago that their language that they wrote on the note wasn't very professional. And I wrote a letter and apologized to the person and called them and went from there. But we do need to upgrade that stuff but when I'm losing $4,000 a month down here, it hasn't been very easy to put a lot of extra effort into it. And that's what's been going on for the last almost 3 years now.
Well, that brings up another question. If you're losing $4,000 a month, why would you want this contract back?
I'm a nice guy. How's that?
Okay.
No, the increase into it, and I'm pretty confident that commodity markets are kind of on the rise back up, and we hope to generate more revenue. But, you know, we took a pretty healthy rate increase on this bid, and that'll make up most of the loss on it. But, you know, it's held us back as far as what we can put in. I replaced a baler this year, $35,000. We had to put another truck on last year. Blew an engine in one. You know, you do what you can with what money you got, and we've kept it going. We've never failed a day, and even, you know, I could have opted out of this contract a couple years ago if that was the case, but if I can't make any money, yes, I don't want to be here. That's why I was suggesting you get into business.
Well, I wouldn't do it at $4,000 a month loss.
No, you can't. But, you know, I've got a big company that, you know, we gross $4.5 million a year, so we can use some of these as write-offs, you know, for other things, but.
Mike, last week when you contacted me and had some discussions, I think it'd be good for people to know kind of your thought as far as lids. The majority of the people I talk to, regardless if it's leaning toward Petrick or leaning toward Dependable, the lids are something that's very important out there. And it's because of being into the wind, being into the moisture, and so you want to relay some of the things that you have passed on
Sure.
to me?
Initially, when we looked at the containers, we thought about lids because they do have, but they're snap-on lids like every Rubbermaid type container that's out there. Most people have the container, I call it sideboarded up with cardboard and things to make it all fit if they have to. So obviously, the lid is inappropriate for that particular. Now, some might like it, but you know, if they put their stuff in there right, it doesn't really need a lid. But even these, I pick up hundreds of these containers, and I can tell you they blow over, they tip over. When they go over, the lid opens, and the stuff at South Dakota, it blows, no matter what kind of container it's in. And we have the same problem with, you know, with trash like that. You get a windy day, you go to the town at 7 in the morning, and half the containers are tipped over. And we try to buy the best ones that are, you know, more stable with the wind and the lids don't flip open. We can get the lids, and I guess I'm willing to pursue that. If anybody wants lids, you know, we can stock some and start putting them out if that's the case. We've looked at some other in-between containers, I want to call it, not these big ones, but something with a hinged-on lid that our trucks, we got to manually lift it up chest high to get the material in the truck. So it's got to be something they can handle manually to get it up
How many
there.
of those bins do you normally keep on stock here in Mitchell? Because the complaint I've heard from some people is that One person, for example, been here for 3 months, he's called several times, can't get a bin. Another person's lost 2 bins, trying to get a 3rd bin, and it's been going on for 5 months, saying there are no bins.
I just brought 50, 75 bins down here prior to Christmas. We're on back order. I got 450 or 500 in right around Thanksgiving time. It took us a while to get it. Most of these companies are out 10 to 16 weeks on delivery, depending on how many you
5
order.
months is a long time to wait, so
Yeah,
so is 3 months.
I agree with that. They shouldn't, we usually, like in Aberdeen, we try to deliver within a week. Once in a while, it gets stretched out to 2 weeks, but, yeah, we usually have somewhere around 15 to 20, whether they lost the bin or need a new one, to catch up on delivery, but it take.
Last month, we put out 42 bins. They were a combination of new, replacement, and lost. Replacement, I mean a broken bin that they had. The replacement one they already had, or that had been lost. So, and that was the deal. We had waited over 30 days to get them in. So, like, just to add what Mike said.
I believe we're all caught up now again, but once in a while we get behind. That's just the way it works.
I don't believe that person is, from 3 months and 5 months has gotten their bin yet.
Then they're not on our list.
Not as of yesterday.
Oh,
Have them give me a call. I'd be more than happy to get them bin out.
all we need is their address.
Mike, do you accept any other bins sitting out on the curb as long as they have the recycling emblem?
That's correct. I guess I didn't cover that. If you got more volume that fits in our bin and for some reason you didn't get a second bin, I mean, they sell the same type of blue containers at Menards, several other places. You can go buy, they're a little spendy, 10 to 20 bucks, but we pay about $10 for them right now. Anything that denotes recycling, so we know it's specifically recycling. And it can be just about any type of container. It doesn't have to be a square one. It can be a round one. I've got a lot of round blue ones up in Aberdeen that just have the recycling emblem on it. But up there, we don't have automated garbage, so it's easier to mistake garbage for recycling when they're both sitting side by side.
So if I want to go to Menards or whatever hardware to get a bin that has the emblem recycling,
Certainly.
you will unload it.
Yep.
And it can have a lid there too if you want
Yep.
to buy it.
And there's no size restriction on that?
Excuse me?
There's no size restriction on that? They can use whatever
Well, I don't
container?
want a great big 90-gallon full of newspaper that we can't lift, because we'll have to sit there and pull it out behind. Most of them are in the same range on up to about a 30-gallon. Most cities have if they're doing garbage the old way, have a limit of about 36 gallons on cans just for workman's comp, but we're not going to hurt our back picking it up.
I honestly think that service is the biggest thing that I have had complaints about. And I think that whoever we're going to go with, no matter what, I think service is the thing that we've got to address. So I'm going to address a few things with you that comes to my mind. Number one, I think that we need to do a better job of communicating with the customers.
Okay.
Very few people are not reading the paper anymore.
Yep.
The paper is a thing to go by. I mean, a thing of past for a lot of people. I mean, I'm sorry to say the Daily Republic is no longer even being published here in Mitchell. It is now being published out of Sioux Falls. That says a lot. Most people are getting their information off of their phones or off of television, et cetera.
Right, yep.
So I think communication between the public with hangers, with something that goes out with city billing, whatever,
Right,
I
yep.
think is big. I never had your name, Mike, before, and I did not know how to get to it. I would call Dependable Sanitation, I would depend on Mike to get back to me. And I will say a couple things. Mike has known me for a long time, and Mike has been good to me. But I have to say this also, I am disappointed because the community manager at Cathedral Square had called him twice and asked for something to be done with the atrocious bins that were at Cathedral Square, that, as I told you at the last meeting, held water, held snow, froze down to the bottom, were not be able to be collected out of, mosquito breeding grounds in the summer. just an atrocious situation for, people to be, trying to handle. For your people to pick up out of, and as well as it got to be a problem for our people to recycle. The other thing that has come to me is, I've had a couple of the past employees here complain to me that knew me, and they said, they had concerns with safety issues with some of the equipment. They no longer work for the company. They chose to move on, and that's their decision. But I want to make you aware of it. I think that your name should be out there available so that if there is an issue here that they don't feel that they can resolve, that they do have an option of coming to you. And I also think then that making aware of the public that the option for having a bigger bin is an option. I never knew that before. Makes
Okay.
no sense. And for this one family then that talked to me and said, I've got 3 kids, I go through 2 gallons of milk a day. What's the point? I mean, this is something that people like that would want to know.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I can relate to that because we used to go through about that much, but we did, we accept plastic bags out there too if they're tied up and as long as they're clear enough that we can see through it, so we make sure it's recyclables. But it takes us longer to tear open a bag and sort this stuff than it does the bin, so we prefer the bins. But I've got a lot of customers in Aberdeen who got 3 or 4 bins, but we make sure they use it. If they're using them for other purposes, they can go buy their own bin, they don't need ours. But I would agree with you on the public service. I think we need to do a better job, and I'd hope to work with your staff here at City Hall to get that accomplished with, out with the billing, I think is an excellent idea. And
Was your problem resolved at Cathedral?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't mention it. This week, he brought out 4, I had suggested at the last meeting that we get 4 of the large bins, similar to what the city uses for trash. He brought 4 big blue bins out that have lids on them. He has them all marked. And as I understand that when the weather warms up, he will be removing the old rusted bins then. So I do appreciate that. I just felt like I need to make you aware that customer service should have been done to somebody else. It shouldn't have been name
Sure,
recognition.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mike, how long have you been in the recycling business and how long have you been in Mitchell?
We've been in Mitchell 22 years. This was one of our first recycling contracts per se. We used to do the city of Madison. We did the city of Brookings. Madison took over and decided to do it themselves. Brookings ultimately went with Cooks or Waste Connections. We've been recycling since the early 70s. And we do a lot of material. We're one of the big recyclers in the state. And I already have all those markets. I work with another large recycling firm out of North Dakota, Minn Kota. They're actually our brokers. We don't broker any of our commodities on our own anymore. It's too easy to put a $6,000 load of plastic down the road to somebody and not get paid. This way I always get paid. My broker pays me whether they collect or not. But we're hooked up. There's only 2 cardboard mills left in the Midwest. One's in Iowa and one's in Minnesota. That's the only 2 places to ultimately to take your cardboard to be recycled back into cardboard. So here we can work with this one. The other up north, where Watertown, we do the same thing. We've got a huge facility there. And we have to ship to Minnesota from there. And truthfully, I think I told you before, most of our newspapers going to insulation companies. Nobody wants newspaper anymore, and especially the contaminated newspaper. We ship direct to Alcoa in Kansas with aluminum. Sometimes it's back here in 2 weeks as a aluminum can again. So we have the connections, we've made all those, and it's tough to make them. It takes years to develop them, and you got to ship them a good product. I've shipped the firms at Egg Carton Plant in Minnesota, right on the border of North Dakota. We're the only MRF in the area that they will take newsprint from, because ours is clean. They will not take it from any material recovery facility that's doing single stream. One other thing I wanted to mention, the one gentleman was talking about the environment and on, we could go there forever, but our trucks go down the road one time a day. An automated truck has to go down that road twice. They don't pick up from both sides, one side at a time, or you gotta get out of the truck and move the cans to the other side. So you back around, turn around, come back down the street twice. Anything else?
I do, Mike. I think I'd be a little bit derelict in my responsibilities if I didn't at least mention two major concerns of mine.
Okay.
I mean, actually, I should say one major concern, but two incidences is safety. And I think safety is important to everyone. And two of the number one complaints I got was with, number one, trucks driving down the middle of the road and stopping in the middle of the road and blocking traffic coming from both directions, creating a traffic issue. Another complaint that I had heard, in fact, it was the day after our last council meeting. There was a complaint called into public safety with regards to workers not wearing their respective safety vests, and one of the workers almost got hit. So that is a concern to me, because we don't want to see people getting hurt or killed in this city because of parking in the middle of the street. Or I guess my question is why can't they move further over to the curb on the right side?
To my knowledge, that only happens like on a one-way street where parking's on both sides.
I've seen it myself on two-way streets. I really have, Mike.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be in the middle of the street, and if that's an issue, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. They should be on the right-hand side, because they don't always see the traffic on the blind side.
That would be my number one concern, is the safety. And
I have this
contract
issue.
to you, I would hope there would be some improvements in some of the safety issues.
So I wasn't aware of that one, but it happens frequently. They're too lazy to walk too far, or it's easier to park right here, and people are impatient. They will not stop behind the truck and wait for you.
And I did hear 4 complaints last week in one specific location, and it wasn't a two-way street on the west side of town.
Okay. We'll rectify it.
Okay.
Good.
My name is Kevin Roth. I'm the City of Mitchell Street and Sanitation Superintendent. I'm not here for one contractor or the other. There's just a few points I just kind of want to touch on. I know Bev was asking about the commercial generators. In the actual specs that were written and everything, it says there will be a separate fee that the contractor will collect from the general generators of the commercial businesses. The participation of the generators shall be on a voluntary basis. It says that, I guess the way I'm reading it for the most part is, they are able to charge the commercial generators a fee, either agreed upon between you guys, or maybe no fee at all. That's something the city really hasn't played in a number of years now. It's just kind of been between the businesses and the contractor. So, if they wish to charge a fee, they do have an option to do that. If they wish not to charge a fee, they have an option to do that. That's something I guess they can talk to on a individual basis, or however they like to do that. I want to clear one thing up. I know Mike Erickson has not received any phone calls from City Hall personally, but he has from the street department. We get a number of complaints that we usually try to handle with Mike Hale, and there's been a few times we have called Mike Erickson up in Aberdeen. So maybe not City Hall, but from the Street and Sanitation Department, we have called.
Maybe some from City Hall, but I have called.
Okay. But I just want to clarify that. Whoever, if you choose to go with, either dependable recycling or P-TRIC, I just want to touch a couple points. You guys have done an excellent job touching on these points, I think. One thing that over the years here that evidently hasn't been enforced a whole lot is to differentiate between the city vehicles and the recycling vehicles. There is a clause in here that each vehicle shall bear the name and telephone number of the contractor and a recycling logo. Now, ever since I've been around here, I've lived in Mitchell all my life. I haven't seen really phone numbers and logos on the equipment of the recycling. To alleviate some of the phone calls that we receive out at the street shop and landfill, it'd be nice that if the contractor had a phone number on there, because the general public probably doesn't know that it's a separate contractor other than the city. So they usually end up calling the city, and then we end up usually calling Mike Hale. And then, most of the time, we don't know if it got taken care of or not. We're assuming it did, because we don't get a call back, or we may get a call back. But I'm just touching on a few points that's in the city contract. Employee training, they're supposed to, the contractor shall certify to the city that each employee has satisfactorily completed a training program. We're hoping that's been done. I have personally not seen anything that says, my 10 employees have completed a OSHA certified class or a MUTCD class or whatever it may be. I'm just throwing out some letters there, but they actually mean something. Yeah. Employee appearance. Uniforms shall be required and be as neat and clean as practical. And the way I look at some of that, and it also says employees' names shall clearly be visible on their uniforms. Well, part of that, I think, between the training and the appearance, part of that goes back with what you guys just touched on as far as safety vests. Should be wearing high vis. And usually Lyndon or an officer, they usually bring that up to them if they're not wearing them, and they are within the street right-of-ways. It's just a safety thing. I know there's a lot of mornings like this time of year, they're out and it's kind of dark. They should be wearing high vis, and that's for their own safety. And like I said, this goes to whatever contractor you choose to have or whatever you guys end up choosing. For contamination, if they're receiving a lot of contamination, they're supposed to be leaving explanation reasons for the individual so they know why their recyclables were not collected. And there's a few other things in here. Most of it's pretty minor, but it's stuff that, all in all, if you put it all together, you can have a nice, clean, respectable operation probably going. The biggest thing that I pull out of this contract that I know has not been being followed is, and you guys touched on it, is the education of the public. In order for a recycling program to run, operate, and be effective, you gotta have education. It doesn't matter. You got new people always moving in, you got people moving out, you got people switching areas of town, but without education, you cannot have a good recycle program. And the contractor is supposed to be paying $300 a month for education. I have never seen any education to the public, really. It can be in the form of door hangers, it can be in the form of radio ads, it could be in the form of some sort of text-generated message. It could get shoved through possibly a Nixle thing, if integrated somehow. But I guess you guys have a decision to make. I have to work with whatever you guys decide to do. I'm not leaning towards one or the other. You can choose not to go with recycle any longer and put it all in the landfill. I know Steve, a little bit, I think last council meeting? We were kind of talking about that 50-50 grant through the city or through the state and stuff. I did run a bunch of numbers. I do have those numbers if you guys want to see those sometimes. That's an option too. So if you choose not to make a announcement tonight on an award, you know. You can always look at other options too. But anyway, if you guys don't have any questions for me.
Justin, I have two questions, and maybe it's for Kevin, but I'll ask you first as the city attorney. So it's easy to say dependable didn't do this and dependable didn't do that, but we're the ones who grant the contract and we're the ones who supposedly enforce it. So who or what in the city should be getting after some of these issues that Kevin talked about? Obviously, if it's a traffic issue, the police, but the safety vests and the phone numbers and that kind of thing, who?
Well, and to follow up on that, whoever we would decide to issue the contract to, do we have an option? I mean, as I understood, this was to be a 3-year contract, but do we have an option if either company that we decide on is not abiding by portions of the contract?
That was my second question, or my second suggestion, to say that it would be granted for 3 years, but renewable every year.
Or is there an out for non-performance?
From my recollection, it's a 3-year term. It's not, annual renewal periods. But
What about the enforcement?
let me touch on the other issue here. Is if there's some kind of material noncompliance, there will be some way to try to terminate the contract at that point, but usually those situations are pretty narrow. As far as who should be doing the enforcement, I guess it's going to depend on, what the nature of the complaint is and I guess how we hear of it. But I don't think that there's anybody specifically designated within the contract to act as that person.
Well, let's just take the instance that Kevin mentioned about the lack of education. Okay, so they're not doing it for whatever reason, or we don't believe that dependable recycling, 996, call us, is educational. Who calls Mike or calls the other Mike in Aberdeen and says, hey, this doesn't meet snuff here?
I guess it's going to depend on who, finds that issue. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that's out there policing it. If somebody's aware that this education's not happening, then they can follow up with it themselves, or they can refer it on to somebody else within the city. But to my knowledge, that hasn't happened at this point.
So nobody owns the bid? I mean, as far as Kevin or who in the city owns this process, I guess boils down to Mel's question, because that's where in the business, we have a contractor, someone monitors that contractor for compliance.
Accountability and responsibility.
I think, to go piggyback with Dave, I think it's a little unfair to dump on dependable if we wait once every 3 years to go, well, gosh, you didn't do this, and this.
And I understand that. I've been in Ron's position for a little over a year now, and by the time, I started going through all these different contracts throughout the years, and I knew this one was coming up for renewal, and so we just kind of waited it out to the new one, because it's been going on for so long, because like Mike said, he's been here, 22 years, Mike Erickson? 22 years, so he's had multiple 3-year contracts. This has been getting pushed by the wayside. It's things that I think if we're going to follow through and actually hire a contractor to do this, then we need to step in and kind of not necessarily hold its hand, but we need to make him more accountable for things. And like I said, I'm not holding dependable. I'm using this as whoever gets it. I'm just bringing that up because it's things that both contractors need to be aware of this. So.
Right, we would have the same enforcement issues with Petrick, not that they would be in violation, but the same
Exactly.
accountability, but
Yep.
this is the company that
And
we
I
have a
think-
track record with.
To help Justin out a little bit, I believe in there, and Tim can tell me if I'm wrong, there is a clause in there, I believe, that it calls out something that the City of Mitchell Street and Sanitation Superintendent is pretty much the overseer of the recycle program, but yet can't really put his foot down and say, you have to do this, you will do this, or else. You know, I think it's just kind of a,
In every service contract, there has to be responsibility and accountability, and as Mel very well put it, during the course of that agreement, there has to be some way of monitoring that accountability.
And I don't disagree with you, Mel, but at the same time, if they were simply doing what they were supposed to, it wouldn't be an issue.
No, I agree. Yeah, and as Yogi Berra said, this is deja vu all over again, because 3 years we heard this exact same kind of thing.
Section J of this contract says a failure to comply with any of these circumstances can result in the termination of the contract. So I would say it would be up to the street and sanitation superintendent to bring that to the council and have a discussion after he talks to Mike and then Mike.
or whoever the contractor may be.
Well, I don't mean to throw another wrench into the works here for everybody, but we do have an issue that really hasn't surfaced to this point. Jeff actually provided me the perfect segue tonight twice to discuss that. He brought up lids and he brought up code enforcement. And we have a section in our new nuisance code that says waste, including but not limited to discarded items such as paper, trash, garbage, et cetera, and any like items when such items are stored, collected, piled, or kept on exterior, private, or public property, except for that contained within a covered waste receptacle, is a nuisance. So if it doesn't have a lid, it's a nuisance. Now, I guess this didn't get discussed when we were adopting the nuisance code, and I'm not saying that this issue needs to dictate what happens tonight, but if we're going to go forward with a recycling policy that isn't going to require covered receptacles, we are going to have to go back and amend our nuisance code again to accept out that issue. Now, I know that there was a reason that we put that in there for garbage. I don't know why we should treat recycling any differently, but that's a council decision.
Well, for an action stage, I'd like to start. I've heard the same thing that Jeff has heard about lids, and that seems to be the reason why people would prefer Petri. I'd like to put both bidders aside for a moment and say, why are we recycling? And if we're recycling to save the environment, it makes no sense to me that we truck glass all the way to the East Coast, that we take cardboard to Iowa, or we take cardboard to Minnesota, and we take cans to Kansas City. So to me, I've had many citizens call me too, oh, you got to recycle, but it's a little bit like having a gym membership and never going. You feel good about having the gym membership, but you don't actually achieve any result. So I'm voting no on both contracts tonight, because I don't think we're achieving our purpose of recycling.
Well, that was a very good note that the mayor put out today about some comment from the person that was on the committee some 20 years ago, as I was on that committee, recycling committee. At that time, we did the phone interviews, and about a third of the people said they'd recycle. And if you go around, about a third of the people recycle. So, to your point, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time. 2 hours into this, and we're no closer to making a decision than we were when we started. So, your point's well taken.
I don't believe we resolved the issue at all with either one. I just don't think that we resolved the issue. I mean, I truly believe we need to have a closed container. I know that some people don't want anything any bigger, but I know that at least as many want something 2 to 3 times bigger. We're not going to please everybody. I know that as far as service and as far as safety, there's questions about how that's all would be handled. At this point in time, I don't think that we have a clear-cut decision. I don't feel that I have a clear-cut decision in front of me.
What's your pleasure, folks?
And Mel, I think you may be 100% right, until we show the public that that is the case. I think it's a little bit premature because of the people that contacted me. Steve had 2, I had 1, said, don't even recycle. I don't do it, I don't believe in it, and so why? The one point that I'd like to make, though, is people are thinking, we look at the contracts and whatever the 280 or what's your favorite contract in your 310, the city is not paying for that. It is passed 100% on to the citizens, and I think a lot of people know that, but a lot of people do not. So I think they need to be aware of that. And I think we should, at this point, continue to recycle, just because I think the citizens want it, but I don't think they're educated. And I think it's time for us to maybe start educating people, but we're not going to do it in a 2-week period. But I think there needs to be very good studies done and relate to us. Every town our size does recycle, and it might be all for the wrong reason. But in all reality, it's something everybody feels good about, as you said. But, you know, the one thing that I'm coming back to is after my discussion with Mike Erickson, is he does know the business, and I guess if there's any way you can make money or do something good for the environment, I think he's probably got it figured out. Petrick could be the perfect fit for us, but being the very first in the business, I think there's a reason why there's only 4 left in the state. And again, taking nothing away from Petrick, but I'm just thinking that I don't know if I want to be the guinea pig. The other thing that I'm kind of, as we talked about the last time, is there are solutions out there that are different than ours. And we contribute as a landfill, we contribute to a state fund that generates approximately $1 million a year that turns around and sends money to cities and municipalities that have programs that they're going to do. Now, you can apply as a private individual, but in all reality, it's there as a municipality. So we always say we don't want to add more people, but does it make more sense to, we're already collecting it and we're passing it on, we never get our fair share back, it seems like. Can we make it a less of a burden financially to our citizens if we do investigate a true single source? And then if that's the case, then how much is contaminated? So are you really, in the end, doing what you've accomplished? So I'm a little torn myself. This is a very emotional topic for people in the city. They have very, very, very strong opinions on both sides. This will be a very unpopular vote for half the people in town, to tell you the truth.
No matter which way you go.
Yeah, it is. But with those things in place, I guess I'm going to be leaning toward Dependable just for that reason. And I do know that Mike and his wife at Dependable, Mike sits on the state board, and he might even be the president, I think he told me. And his wife is an engineer and have written several grants. And he said that they would be willing to help Mitchell if we decided to shift gears and do something different. And like I said, the lids are very important, and if that's the case, we go that direction, I guess we're going to have to either demand that lids be put on, or we're going to have to take a look at our nuisance code. And by the time we get something figured out, more than likely the $17 that have gone out of the state have already been awarded. So we'd be looking at a 2018 if we were going to do anything different anyway. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents if it's worth anything, but it's a very, very difficult decision to make.
So did you make a motion for Dependable?
I don't think he did.
You haven't? Well, I'll move to award the bid to Dependable with the caveat that we have lids, get lids start putting on the container.
I don't think that we can. It wasn't included in the bid spec.
Okay, now just, I move to award it to Dependable.
So that would be the base bid for curbside recycling as defined in the bid specs to Dependable Recycling, just to be clear for anyone listening.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a,
I feel like we need to amend it though, to where it does require lids. They said that they do have an option for lids for those blue tubs.
The bid spec is,
Then-
bid spec is,
Then you'd need to reject all the bids and rebid it.
have to reject them.
start all over again.
I mean, I don't know how we cannot do that when we have people saying that they want lids and our nuisance ordinance, which is already on the books, requires that it be covered.
So question, Mike, will you do that?
First, to my knowledge, recycling isn't even in the same category with waste. Recycling is all commodities, and in most cities I've worked in, they treat it separately. However you read your code, I don't think it really matters, but I can provide lids if that's what you need to anybody that wants them. I guess I'd be willing to do that.
Hey,
I think
I
if,
don't think very many people are, there's gonna be some that want them, but not very many.
I mean, I think if we can at least make the provision that they are, available and that they don't have to beg for them. And that, that we can depend that the educational pieces and the safety pieces are, of this contract are going to be looked at seriously.
In the past, Ron Olson and I worked pretty diligently hand in hand, and I would look forward to Kevin went back there. I need a key person. I need to know who I got to contact also to rectify problems, to get the problems to me or take care of things. So if he's the man, that's the one I'm going to talk to. So I don't have to run around to a whole bunch of other people. But the other problem with lids, containers blow away, so do lids. Your garbage can here are attached, but, in some places, the lids blow just as much as it can. So I can see a replacement problem, just like we do with bends. When the wind blows 90 miles an hour, we gotta go find some. But we do suggest they put their address on the bend with black magic marker, and it's a lot easier to find when it's over the neighbor's yard, where they know.
Probably going to lose lids just as much as you lose the bins, if not more.
Exactly.
Well, I can see that, especially if they're not snapped on tight, but I also think the educational piece then, where they know that if they want to go to Menards and pick up whatever size is, of recycling bins is available to them, I think that's an educational piece that needs to be out there as well.
Okay.
Okay, we had a motion and we had a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Carried. Okay, number 14 on the agenda is action to award bid for construction of an indoor aquatic center, city project number 2016-11.
The good news is after these two, we should just fly through the meeting, right? Do you want to wait for Counselor Olson? Does anybody else need a minute? Sure. Okay. are you ready to proceed, Mayor? Okay. Well, the bid tabs are included in your packet for your review. I'm not really sure where the council wants to start the discussion. We did provide a recommendation that we felt would give you as many of the alternatives as possible with the base bid, including the professional services fees that need to come in within that established budget limit by the referral election. But obviously, it's up to the council to decide. Because your two lowest bidders are so close, it's really difficult. The city won't know who your low bidder is for certain until the council has first decided on what your bid alternatives are going to be. We do have MSH here to answer any questions that you might have on the bid specifications. We can certainly answer any other questions, but I don't want to lead you through the discussion. We'll let you start.
Stephanie, for the public, could you just briefly say, for the people listening, I mean, we have 7 alternatives or 9 alternatives.
Sure.
People don't know what
Sure. We can walk through that a little bit. So as you're aware, ever since the project was discussed, knowing that we had an established budget amount that we were working with, the decision by the pool committee was to come up with what the base bid would be and then design a series of alternatives so that when it got to council decision, which state law requires that the council is the one that makes the decision on the bid award plus alternatives, that you have some flexibility in determining which of these you want to consider. Just for informational purposes, obviously the base bid, we all kind of know what would be included with that. I'll just give a little bit of a description of the alternatives. The first alternative, ultraviolet sanitation, that's an additional feature added on. The pool committee stated that that would be the number 1 alternative that they would like considered when the alternatives were decided. Basically, the best way, I forget the right word, it's chloramines, I believe, that it eliminates, but it's the pool smell that happens in pools, so this eliminates that. The second one, the alternative 2, is a competitive pool play features. I may have to ask Robin to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that would be the rock wall, the volleyball, and the basketball?
Correct.
Okay. Alternative 3, the recreation pool features, that one you might want to give a little bit more detail because I don't know what's all included. I'm assuming the top slide spray feature, the
You're right there.
rolling log, the swing zip line thing.
You're doing good. Toddler slide, water table activity, 0 depth entry spray features, a floatable, a zip line rope swing feature, and a rolling log.
Yep. The number 4 is the water slide. That would be the larger outdoor slide. A point to make here is that when the committee decided what would be in the base bid includes all of the necessary infrastructure for the slide to be added later. If necessary, they did that so that if the bids, depending on what the bids came in at, that could always be added later as fundraising was done or something like that. So it's got the platform structure and the infrastructure needed to support the slide if you add it on at a later date. Alternate number, I'm going to have to make this bigger. Apparently, my eyes are going bad in my old age. Okay, alternate number 5 is a drop slide. Now that goes into the recreation pool, and that's all contained indoor, and it went to the deeper side of the recreation pool that we showed the council. The 6th one, underwater lights. This was a feature that was recommended by Councilman Hunsaker to the committee that allows you to do changing colors under lights so you can do teen nights with movies and light up the water. It's for programming flexibility. Alternate number 7, in the base bid, we included regenerative filters. We talked about bidding it this way. Sand filters are the more common filters that are used, but we thought that the bids would be more competitive to do it as a deduct versus putting the sand filters in and doing the regeneratives as an alternative. So the sand filters are something that they recommended that would be totally fine for us to do within the facility, but if it was affordable, we wanted to consider the regenerative filters that are included in the base bid. Alternate number 8, I want to explain a little bit, and the base bid includes surface water drainage for the construction site. One of the items that was discussed during our committee meetings is we currently have a storm water drainage concern there where water kind of backs up at times. the pool can be constructed without this alternative. We asked for this to be listed as a separate alternative so that you as a council could consider doing this work at the same time while the ground is already being tore up and disturbed, and we could make that go underground. This would be funded from storm sewer funds because it is not required as part of the pool project. That is up to the council to choose whether you want to do it. It just made sense for efficiency and timing to do it when you're already disrupting the area. The sound baffles, if you remember the pictures that they showed us, that was the channels with the pool noodles that came in. So that goes through all of your alternatives. We did have to go and do an estimate on what those soft costs were going to be for testing, architectural, and engineering. Those costs came in at just under $630,000. It was $629,415. I did do this in case you guys wanted to use this during your discussions. I put this together into a spreadsheet so that as you go through, we can kind of remove items out of here and you can kind of see where you are within your funding levels. If you remember the referral election, it listed a total of $8,085,880, but there was a typo with the 5 and the 8 being transposed. The funding that's identified is listed here, the community bonds, the cash that the city has on hand, and then the financing of the bid. So this is what was included in the referral election. And then obviously, if you consider doing this item here, the storm sewer funds, we would just add in whatever amount you end up with, depending on who the base is and the alternatives, to offset that alternate number 8 with the storm sewer funds. Does that make sense? I didn't fill it in not knowing where you're going to end up, because it just depends on what you choose for alternates.
So can we ask a question?
Yeah. I want to just make one comment based on several calls and tens of emails, I guess, that I got, is that if we take the base bid, the professional fees, and the alternates and put them all in there, we're over budget. The calls I got, numerous, more than 4, said, the newspaper reported that all the bids came in under budget. Why would you have to pick alternates in order to build the pool? But the base bids with the alternates and the professional fees are over budget for every person that bid. And I want to make sure that people understand that. If we just say, we're going to go with all the alternates and the base bids and the professional fees, basically we're done, we're over budget, and we're not building a pool.
Those totals are listed right here,
Yep, I know that.
in case anyone in the audience wants to look.
So, because the newspaper said all the bids were under budget, the perception, at least the people that called me, was that why would you have to pick any alternates? Just pick them all and give it to the lowest bidder. But we can't do that because it's over budget. Okay.
Yep. I guess I wasn't for the pool at the beginning, but after I was on the committee and listened to everything that was going, I think it's going to deliver a beautiful building. But I've been committed, the voters said $8,058,880, and I want to build them the best pool we can possibly get for $8,080,080, that number. And the thing that jumped out at me most blatantly is the contingency fund. $35,000, 0.04% on an $8 million project. If you can do that, you're walking on water. We're very conservative at Toshiba, and we bid 5%. So I'm really concerned that all of a sudden we get a change order for, $35,000 that can disappear in a heartbeat. We get a change order for $100,000 after we award the bid as it is. What happens? One is, we already told the citizens that it wasn't going to cost more than $30,000 more to operate it, and we know that's not correct. Now we say, okay, we're building it for $8,058,880, and now we say, well, no, now it's another $100,000 or whatever. So I think we need to be very, very careful on that contingency, that we don't play ourselves too tight, that we give ourselves room. So my question is, what are these alternatives that we could add on after we know what the costs are? I mean, without having to go into whole tearing apart the pool, and doing that kind of stuff. Is there any opportunities for us to hold off on some of these alternatives until we get farther into the game and we know what our real costs are going to be?
Okay, you asked a relatively complex question, but I can tell you that, for instance, with the water sanitation system, which is alternate number 1, the electrical power to the UV systems is provided in the base bid. For alternate number 2, well, in fact, if I could go back a little bit of the theory behind bidding this is as we looked at and talked to the committee on what you'd like to have in a pool for the city, we identified all those items. And I took it upon myself to say, we need to make sure we have a base bid that is under budget, that delivers what you have to have, and it's under budget, period. And then let's put everything in there and make it as competitive as we possibly can, and hopefully, by the grace of God, get everything. So I think what we got is extremely competitive bids that are right where you wanted them. It's almost like saying we want a car, we'd really like to have remote start and keyless entry, and so all those things are there, but with all of you, yes, you are over budget. So going back, with the alternate number 1, we did provide it with electrical power to the UV systems in the base bid. In alternate number 2, for the competition pool play features, foundations and anchors are provided in the base bid.
They are, okay.
Yes. In alternate number 3, in fact, we tried to make all of these so they're easily added. Maybe that's a simple
Foundations
answer.
are in the base bid. Does that mean that these are extras that can be added later?
Okay, the foundations are in the base bid and the anchors, but the features, the climbing wall, the water basketball hoop, and the water volleyball net are in the alternate. Yes, they can be added later.
Okay.
Oh,
We tried to set all these up so that they could be easily added later. So if you go alternate number 3, the piping, the pumps, the foundation, the anchors are provided in the base bid. So that later you could add the toddler slide, the water activities, the zero entry sprays, the floatables, and the zip line. Alternate number 4, the water slide, the piping, the pumps, and the foundation is provided in the base bid. So the slide could be quite easily added later. The only difference is you won't get that same competitive price for these, or you likely won't, because you'll have to rebid them. So what you want to do, I think, is get, and I can keep going on these, but theoretically what you want to do is get the best pricing, the best bids, and award what you can now. But understand that we set them all up so that, yes, they could be added later. Knowing that, with everything loaded in here, you likely won't get the remote start in a couple of those items.
I take it the underwater lights couldn't be added later?
The underwater lights cannot be added later.
Okay, thank you.
How else am I doing? The sand filters, that's a one-time deal. What we found out interesting is when we reduced the size of the building, we didn't think we could still do the sand filters because they take more space. And we found out in consultation with Councilman Hunzinger that we could indeed still fit them within the reduced square foot size of that equipment room, which is a blessing for us. So we said, let's make that an alternate. So we were able to give you a deduct price in that $100,000 range. The exterior storm sewer, that's, you either take it or you don't take that one.
How about number 5?
Did I skip 5? Sorry, the drop slide. Oh, let me keep going. Piping and foundations are provided in the base bid. Exterior, and now I'm jumping to 9, if that's okay. The acoustical sound baffles, don't put them in later. I could tell you, we're surprised by the price. We estimated $40,000. They all came in around 100. They'd be a neat feature, but not at that kind of price. We can't recommend that. And you can't put them in later. They're over the top of the pool. And getting up there later to put them up would be very difficult. It could be done, I guess.
What about Dave's point about contingency?
I did a quick study because I thought that might come up. We looked at 7 of our last projects that were bid and completed recently. Some were very complex. I can give you an idea, like Adding on to Brown Hall at Brookings was to knock down a building in the middle and retain 4 structures around it with a mechanical system working through 2 seasons with students in there without the middle of the building being complete. Another one would have been the Performing Arts Center that we currently did here in the city of Mitchell, where we ran into all the hidden concealed conditions underground. So that we had quite a range of projects to look from, but those are 2 of the more complex ones we ran into. What we call design-related changes, those are goofs that we make, something we didn't get into the documents right. It happens. They ran from 0.26% to 0.85%. That was Brown Hall. That was a high project, with an average of 0.363% of the cost of construction.
Well, we asked, not everybody was on the council at the time, but we did a renovation of the Corn Palace that really was a comedy of errors. And we blew through a much bigger contingency.
Yes.
By magnitude of, 10 times. And this is a bigger project, almost double the dollar amount.
I do have to say, with the Corn Palace, so 2 things that were different. First, you're renovating an existing building versus building a new building. And you remember some of the things they found behind the walls and stuff at the Corn Palace. And also at the Corn Palace, a lot of those were owner-directed changes, not necessarily design errors. It was stuff that we thought we could do, or that the city thought you could do more efficiently, or that for whatever reason was left out of the design. So the majority of those were owner-directed. Some of them were, I guess, like the existing conditions or the.
In fact, I have the statistics. I only gave you the design error number, but we track change orders by design error, hidden concealed conditions, and owner-directed changes. So we find, generally speaking, the owner-directed changes are the highest number. So our track record for these 7 projects was 0.00%. We had 2 projects, 1 project with no owner-directed changes, and they went all the way up to 1.05% of the cost of the project. And the hidden concealed conditions is where we had 2 projects that ran 0. They ran as high as 0.89%, which is the Mitchell Performing Arts Center, with all those hidden concealed conditions, and the average was 0.287%. So if you were to add all 3 of those together, yes, you'd be, 0.3, 0.2, and 0.1, somewhere in that range, percent.
I have a question for Justin. Let's say we go with the suggestion from the city officials, and then we run into difficulties, and we decide not to pick your alternate to save money. And now by not doing that alternate, it would have meant a different bidder. How much hot water are we in?
I don't think that would be a significant legal concern from my end. The intent, what's significant is the intent going into the project. So, I mean, if there was some basis to say that we awarded some alternate with no intention of going forward with it, that would be hot water. But going in with the intention of doing all the ones that we end up awarding, and then later coming across circumstances that don't make that advisable, that's not going to land us in hot water.
Could I add?
One question, you might want to go over the timeline for the outside slide too, because we did have quite a few people emailing that question about the slide. What's the last time that you could add it on if we were to do some community fundraising?
That's correct. We won't be ready for an outside, the contractor wouldn't be ready for an outside slide for over a year, or in roughly the period of time of a year.
Maybe I'm going to ask.
They've got to get the building all up and enclosed and equipment in place first.
It might be a difficult question, something that I like all the alternatives, but the contingency still bothers me, just based on the history that we've done with some of the other stuff. And so my question is, do we really lose that much by just not committing to the alternatives tonight?
One of your challenges is a coordination. Well, in fact, I see 2. One is you'll very likely pay more, because these were competitively bid as a large package, so now's the time to do it while the contractors and everybody's on time. It's efficient to do it this way. Secondly, if you do get alternative contractors, Then you have, generally speaking, we have conflict at a job site. Not that it's not manageable, but we do have issues, coordination issues now. I just don't see that you'll ever get better pricing, but I understand.
Okay, and I understand that.
I don't.
So say if we wanted to leave out 2 and 3, and knowing that the infrastructure is going to be there and we need to come up with $120,000 at some other, is it going to go up to 150 or 200, or is it going to potentially double? Any idea?
It was, the longer you wait, obviously inflation will take effect, and your conditions will go up, so 120 would easily go to 150, I would think.
So then, maybe, I just want to know a legal question. Based on the referendum, at $8,058,880, what happens if we do find more costs as we go in? Is that an issue for the citizens, the voters that are out?
It's the projected cost at the time of awarding the contract that we need to be concerned with. So if there's later costs that arise, that's not going to affect your award of the contract tonight.
So that would be a standalone decision,
Correct.
then not tied into this particular contract at all. Even though it could potentially be a change order, it would be outside of this contract. And then we can decide as a council if we want it, and then I guess the public can decide if they want it after that.
Right, yep. It'd have to be a decision made at that time.
It's probably the most difficult staff report I've ever had to write. It's very complicated with two very extremely close bids.
Yep. I can tell you and I appreciate the city working with us on this. We encourage the city to pre-qualify contractors, simply because we've seen such a level. The really good quality contractors sometimes are concerned that somebody new to the industry will come in and really lowball them or something. They just don't know how to bid. So it makes them all nervous. So we encourage the city to pre-qualify contractors. We had 5 very good pre-qualified contractors. We felt they were all on an equal par coming in. We had 4 submit a bid. I never did go back to find out why the 5th did not, but I would say they're all good, equally good.
Just one other question. Why did you guys add the sewer into this project when it wasn't part of the 8,058,88?
We're tearing up the
Why
property.
didn't you just leave that standalone?
The property's all torn up, so something has to go back. And so we had to drain around the building. We put in like there is out there right now, there's a concrete surface drain. We put a concrete surface drain around the building, but it's not the best solution. So we encourage, while it's torn up and while something has to get put back into the project, let's get it priced.
I have no problem with that. I think it's a smart thing to do. I just wonder why it's part of this package and not just a separate standalone.
So that you had the same
sewer.
contractor doing both work, because otherwise, if we were to bid or do that work separately from the pool, you have a coordination of services with 2 different contractors working in the same area, and you sometimes have problems with lines of accountability.
That price would have gone up because the first contractor would have to put it together and the second one would have to tear it apart to put it in.
I don't know if you want my opinion or not, but I know that you came up with a price of $8.058 million a couple of years ago before me, and this is incredibly close to what you said to spend on this pool. I think it's fabulously close. Meaning good job.
Yeah.
So coming back to the contingency again, I mean, is that something where you've been into hundreds of jobs and you've seen renovations, you've seen new construction, you're seeing a project like this that is going to be hooked on to a particular existing building on bare land. So where is hate to put you on the spot, but in reality, that's something that we need to understand.
I'm thinking.
As a professional, I'd like your advice.
Okay, my thought goes, first I looked to see how many holes did we dig in the ground? Is there anything hidden down there? And there was, at one time, indication that there could be an old school foundation. We punched 10 holes, we didn't hit anything. That's where my concern goes to hidden, concealed conditions, but we didn't hit anything. So we're thinking we're going to be okay there. This is a pretty straightforward project architecturally. It's broken into two large components, one pool component and an architectural enclosure shell component of the building. We're feeling like we got everything priced really well. We think we got good coordination on the documents. And not to brag, but we're working anymore in a kind of an interactive 3D. We can see if there's a duct that doesn't fit through a wall. There's still things that show up, but I'm feeling if you don't ask for changes and we don't run into some hidden for concealed conditions, we're on that, but it's going to be tight. That's a tight little contingency.
And I think the city really has no ability to make owner-directed changes. It's going to just be if you find conditions. We
Yeah.
can't add something because we
Yeah.
want to with that small of a
And neither can I.
contingency.
I mean, it has to be a signed contract between, I'll write agreements, but it has to be a signed contract between you and your contractor.
You know, Mel, and bring up the corn palace and the change orders we had on there, the 79 of them, or whatever it was. I knew it was gonna bring up concern to everybody too, and I even got some phone calls on it, you know, the contingency and how high it is, but when we're comparing these two projects, it's apples and oranges. I mean, it's a remodeling a 100-year-old facility compared to something that's brand new and just attached to a few areas, but it's just apples and oranges with, you know, the comparison is contingency. No different, even if you go down to a small project of doing your house, compared to building a brand new and remodeling a 100-year-old farmhouse. Boom, they're like this, you can't even put them in the same basket.
The numbers I read you with all the high ranges, those are the tough, difficult remodels. This is fairly straightforward. We've just completed a project where we added a building right up against an existing building at the Performing Arts Facility. We're doing that very same kind of an addition, and it's pretty straightforward.
The one comment that I wanted to make is a lot of the alternatives that are on there was after the pool committee reviewed all the different options for these recreational features. I would hate to see you, or see the city not proceed with the slide and without those components, the recreation, the leisure components, because that's what Councilman Hunsaker was telling us helps us make our operational goals for operating the facility, that you can't just have two bodies of water and then anticipate we're going to be able to cover our costs of operations. So those things like the rock wall and the drop slide and the zip line drop thing and the basketball and the volleyball nets and the tot spray features and the tot slide are part of what helps us attract people to use it outside of the competitive events.
And I
And that's
agree.
some of my phone calls I got too, is when they were talking about the alternatives and people knew about the pool possibly being eliminated at night. And, you know, people called me, and the point is why, the slide, yep, sorry. And then people called me to the point, that's part of why I got on board. That's part of why I supported, you know, and getting the pool done is because of the quality of life you're given. Because we all know, we go back to the fact of the MAC and stuff like that. And that's where people change their thought process is the fact that it's going to be a good thing for the community and the kids and new families coming to town and stuff like that. So I'm very hesitant by not trying to take every single alternate we can get as of now what the pricing is. I think he's being very favorable later when he says 150 for these other alternates, because if we don't do it now, well, you can build it at the same time during construction on that timeline, and somebody's got to come in and add these pieces of the puzzle. It's ungodly, a huge amount to add. It's like putting a surround sound in your home. You didn't do it when you built it, but you add it 10 years later, you're going to pay so much money, it's ridiculous. I think we got to try to take every alternate we can. Let's get it in here, and if we're going to eliminate the slide for the time being, we got to figure out how to get that, because that's what the people want to. They want the slide.
And I know Dave wanted to slide in here, but that might have been your comment, but anyway, I think it's worth repeating that we have a limited budget, we can't afford everything on the wish list tonight. But when you see the price of the slide between 260, 265, and you add up the other alternates that are being proposed as a recommendation, it almost mirrors each other. So you are still getting all of the different things that Stephanie brought up earlier. And I know we would be very remiss if we didn't do everything in our power saying that this is the last piece that you put onto this project, onto this building. The last one we assemble is going to be the big slide. And I think as a council, we do need to do everything in our power to try to see if we can get that particular piece as kind of the final puzzle. The baffles, you explained that. I mean, it would have been nice, but not for another $60,000. We can maybe find another solution after it's up. That probably makes some sense. But as far as the big slide is concerned, you know, we've got some fundraising capabilities. We've got, less than a year. We're going to be at the budget again. and we've got a professional fundraiser sitting at the table here.
Yeah, and-
But anyway, I just think that it is very important for the citizens and the families and grandparents and whoever the case may be, that we find a way of getting this thing put together. But they may have to just trust us that tonight we can't do everything, but we can find a solution in the future, in the near future.
And I'm going to echo those remarks, Jeff, and I just hope that we can somehow, like you said before, it's going to be up to over a year before the slide is needed, and I hope somehow we can find a way within this next year to get that budgeted, like you said, if it's through the process that you just mentioned for fundraising, somehow, I just hope somehow we can get this thing done at some point in time very soon.
Well, Steve and I were on the committee, and I think what turned me around a little bit is this became a city pool, not a competitive pool. So, and I think the alternatives are very important. Again, my concern is strictly the dollars. You know, I like everything. I think the alternatives, give the kids, give whoever, a whole bunch of options other than just swimming laps. So I like that part, but I'm still, I gotta be, I'm nervous.
Is there consensus on the baffles? Do you want to see what that does to the price? I mean, I've got this set up so that if the council gets into discussing alternatives, we can, if you want to see what it looks like with some deleted, it's going to update your total construction cost as we go. So if you guys want me to do any of that.
I just have a question. Do you have to pick them? Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Sue Bennett, and I'm at the rec all the time. Anyway, my question is, I was on the committee, and we laid out what we wanted. Of course, we want it all. But we said the same thing. You can't have the big picture out front with this big slide sitting there and then not put it up. You can't, you know, maybe I don't care if we have zip line, but somebody else does. So what we said as a committee was we take you can fundraise to the Lions Club and get $21,000 from donations, a lot quicker than you're going to get $350,000 for whatever. So do we have to take the alternatives in that order? Can you pick and choose? And if so, you know, what do we stand the best as fundraising? So we worked hard to say, you know, oh, yeah, we need this for the little kids and we need this for the teenagers and this would be great for, but what we looked at was, what do we get for our money? What's the $7 million, what's the base pay? And then anything else after that, we counted in the slide because we didn't know any better. But yeah, if you take out alternatives, does it come in? Do we have enough money? We agonized over this. And it must be a terrible decision for you to make because it took us time and time again. But he did a great job. But can you raise $10,000 from local people easier than you can raise $350? If that's included, then maybe that's where we need to spend our money. That's all I'm saying is, do you have to pick them in order? Thank you.
Are you aware, hopefully you're all aware that you can pick these in any order.
Yeah.
We set the bidding process up that with a base bid and then any order, any or all, in any order.
We did get the question quite a bit about the big slide, so I just pulled this up to show you the base bids plus the water slide and the sand filters. That's all you could award in the contract to stay within that budget amount that's approved. So you would have to give up the UV sanitation, all the other play features, the drop slide, the underwater lights. Yeah, and you would only have at that point $15,000 of contingency. So the slide is really difficult.
Could I make a plug for the drop slide? That was not originally in the concept. And that's one awesome slide. I know it's inside, but It's going to be a fun one. It's the kind where I forget how far they drop into the deep water. It's like 6 feet or something like that. But I think
that
that'll be a
UV
fun slide.
sanitation is something we can't not do. We've got to do that.
And I understand the point. The public did think they were getting that big slide. And it is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, when you go out to fundraise for this, people say, well, I thought I was voting for that. But on the other hand, that's a much easier sell than UV sanitation, or, you know, some of these other things. So, yeah.
Find it a lot easier to raise money per slide.
Well, do we need a lot more discussion on this? If we don't, I'm going to move that we accept the bid with the alternatives 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
That takes out the sand, some baffles.
In the slide, yes.
Which means
I don't know who gets it. I don't, you know.
And that was your recommendation?
that follows the recommendation that was included in your packet, is accepting all the alternatives, including alternate 8 to be funded from storm sewer funds, with the total construction cost of $7,429,500. With our estimated fees, that brings you into $8,058,915, which is where you end up with the 34, what did I say, 865 for contingency? Yeah, it's up here. I gotta look here.
If you want to say something, better do it before the train leaves the station.
All right.
Right, okay. Good job, Marty.
Yep. I'm one of the general contractors who did bid on the project. I'm Chris Rams with Sun Coated Construction. So I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on the project with you guys and what you're looking at and some of the comments and opinions from a potential contractor who would put this project together for you. So I know the option of adding the slide at a later date is an option. There's the foundations, the pumps, and the piping are there. Once construction begins with the building being precast and glazing, you do have to make that decision rather early so that those can be planned for, so those openings can be left out. They can be cut later, but then that increases the cost of them, and that's a change order for you guys. So I want you to be aware of that. It's not, if you decide in December that, hey, we got the money raised for the slide, can we get it in for the X number of dollars? I don't think that that's going to work for you. It's going to end up costing you a little bit more than that, but just sharing that with you. The other one that, when I was bidding this project, I had a lot of subcontractors talk to me about potential cost savings. You guys can entertain those with whoever you select with a low general contractor, but there are some out there. So one of them that I wanted to bring up was it's the drainage one. When you look at the drainage on the site, currently it's surface water draining. The alternative is to put it underground. What doesn't change is the amount of, elevation. It starts at here, and where it falls out at is 2 feet less. Whether you do it on the surface or below ground, it's the same elevation drop. I don't know if that's the best spent money for you guys because the water's still going away. It's either on the surface or underground. The RCP that's buried does begin at only 2 foot under grade. So frost goes 4 foot here. That's why we do 4 foot frost footings. I don't know if it's going to cause problems, but there's potential for that. The site just doesn't allow for you to get that buried 4 foot because by the time you hit street with grade, you're below your storm sewer there. And then the other one that the architect mentioned on was the contingency for, what is it, 30-some thousand? Yep. Talking with utility contractors, they are anticipating finding old foundations. I'm not trying to downplay his recommendation on this, that they did do geotech borings. But I do know that that's a 4-inch hole, and 10 of them across a 2-acre site is a small percentage of the area explored. Yeah, it was discussed at the pre-bid that if that came up, that would be change ordered in for the cost to remove those foundations. I'm not a dirt contractor. I don't know what that costs, so I can't explain it to you, give you an idea of what that's going to run you. one other item that I had in my bid, I sent a letter to a few of the city staff. I have an error in my bid, and I sent a letter to them wanting the opportunity to explain it to you guys if you're at this council meeting. So on, I'll explain it to you, alternate 8, I do have an error in bid. It was a extra $15,000 that I had plugged in. It's if you want me to go into the details of it, I can. I don't know how you're supposed to handle error in bid on public projects. I've never been down that road. So you guys can explain that to me. If I need to explain more, great. If I don't, that's also fine too. But that'd be a $15,000 savings on that alternate, so. Any questions for me?
Did you want to comment on that, Justin?
Well, I'll just advise the public that I did receive Suncoda's letter explaining that difference. I did forward that letter on to the council along with my legal opinion on the matter, basically saying that we cannot take that into consideration.
Okay.
We have to use the bid price
Yep.
that was submitted in the sealed bid.
Yep, I understand it. It's just I didn't know how it works when it's a savings, so.
Okay.
Any other questions about how the project goes together? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any final comments?
I appreciate the information about the whole basically having to be there. I would like to add to our work session on the 30th what debt is going to be retired in the next year. I think we need to consider a Donald Trump solution to this. He's going to build the wall and then have Mexico pay for it. We may be in a situation where maybe we should build the slide and then fundraise to pay retrospectively.
I did already have that conversation also with Toby Morris, just in the event that you might ask the question. I did start talking to him about how we might go about funding the $2 million commitment here. And the option that we're looking at right now, Mel, would be private placement of the bonds, because then the city can be, we can be more, we can put more requirements in the RFP that we would solicit that would say things like, if we send additional revenue, that it'll pay down the principal early and there won't be a penalty, so we could pay it off at 7 years versus 10. So when you're considering that, you could include the slide as part of that package, knowing that when your fundraising comes in, then you just pay off that principal early and you're not financing it any longer. And I do have them doing a review of our current debt to see if any could be refinanced also to realize additional savings like we did on that TIF that we just refinanced.
Yeah, I wasn't originally for the pool, but I think people should get what they vote for.
And if it was necessary for the council too, if you wanted to make that decision early, you know, originally we were looking at proposing financing late summer, early fall. We could move that up earlier just so that you get through the review process of that and you can say that that's done as well.
Further comment? Not, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the action to approve agreement number A2017-01, Clubhouse Manager Agreement.
I promise not to put any pressure on you after all this tonight. Eric Heeb is our present contract manager for the clubhouse. The board and I are very happy with his performance. The board, Steve Rice is our liaison. We've challenged Eric with a few new programs to develop this year. He's very well received by the public, beginning golfers and youth and children. Very well liked young man. On a side note, the Veterans Park Committee would like to recognize him. A lot of people did a tremendous amount of work for that Veterans Park, but one of the sponsors for the golf cart giveaway awarded 3 prizes of $1,000 to the people that raised the most or sold the most tickets. and Eric was one of those, and Eric donated that $1,000 back to the project. He didn't have to, he did it, and just, he's a fine young person, and an asset to us.
Kevin, I don't have any problem with Eric, and I think Eric's done a good job, but we kind of work dependable over. What's the mechanism for, you know, if for some reason he's not up to snuff in the next couple of years, is this a 2-year ironclad deal, or?
No, we have recourse if he isn't performing.
And as we
It's a good
talked
kind-
about with dependable and got the answer, well, we're not really sure anybody is in charge. Who is in charge of making sure that he maintains his contract?
I'm responsible for that with the board and Mr. Rice.
This is a 1-year?
2-year contract.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve agreement number A 2017-02, Consulting Engineering Services.
Included in your packet was a copy of the proposal for the engineering services. This would be to investigate or to determine what the cause of the moisture issues that we're currently experiencing on the ice arena. I forget what you call the second sheet of ice. I was asked what the timeline is for that. When we met the other day, this page 2 of that proposal does show the timeline that they would anticipate with proposed remediation efforts by July of 2017. Might be a little bit off of that since we're, you know, into January here and they need to get going on that first part of the proposal. I can certainly answer any questions you have. The city participated. It was myself, Nathan, Dan Dobish, Justin, as well as Pitts Construction, and we met with this group online, via conference call. They were recommended by the blower door test company. So, and we were all happy with the proposal.
Move to approve. Second. I got a question. No, it's too late? No. $0 budgeted, where are we going to pull the money from?
I did put in my staff report, it would have to be a contingency request up front, so I would just notate that on your contingency items for 2017. At the end, if there's alternate funding identified, then we would just not use contingency, because we do that at the end of the year. But I'll show it as a potential contingency item starting after the approval.
Did that say remediation done by July?
Recommendation.
Recommendation. I was thinking of the next budget process.
Yeah, so we would know what those remediation efforts are while you're in budget process, so that's good timing. That's a good point.
You got a motion and a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve agreement number A-2017-3, mayor as signatory, and approve grant agreement for airport pavement maintenance.
This is preventative maintenance on the main runway at the Mitchell Airport. It's part of the airport board's 5-year plan. It's a 95% grant, 5% city. The city funding will come out of our fuel tax in Pierce, so you'll never see that come or go. That funding is dedicated for airport projects like this.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action on resolution R2017-03, annexation of the real property as legally described as the south 375 feet of Lot 2, except for the south 300 feet thereof in the southeast quarter of Section 17, Township 103, North Range 60 west of the 5th PM, Davidson County, South Dakota, subject to easements, reservations, and restrictions of record. RR Enterprises.
Mayor and council members, we were in receipt of a voluntary petition, or a petition for voluntary annexation. And my understanding is this is also part of the county issued a liquor license or a license on this property, and so that's what they're subsequently annexing this is. It meets all the statutory requirements. There's one owner, no registered voters, and so forth. So we did receive this petition. Okay. Yeah.
I'm curious, do they have a license right now?
I'll let Mr. They have legal counsel here. I'll let them.
Okay.
Welcome again.
Welcome. Yes, I believe they do. It's planned for commercial development.
Does that do anything to our cap or state regulation?
Well, I would consider it a bonus.
So where exactly is this located? Anyway, I mean, it's not.
Big dog.
Right, okay, that's
Just
what I was.
Up to the west.
Where all those,
A little bit to the north.
where all those storage sheds are going up?
So once it's in the city limits, everybody knows you can transfer a license throughout the city.
Yeah.
As long as it isn't next to a church or whatever else,
So-
and things like that. So it can be transferred once it gets into the city limits, you can transfer to a different location.
Yep, and maybe Neil, this is a question for you. My understanding is everything west, at least until now, on Olman is county, and everything to the east is city, except this one little
No, well,
spot now?
actually, Twin City Fan is in the city limits,
Okay,
and I believe Big Dog might be.
Okay,
But
he's on the east side of the road.
Unless that storage unit
Oh, no, on the west side, there is a piece that butts up against Dave's is in the city limits.
So when we, and I don't know who plows this, is the city have to plow this frontage and the county's
That
gonna
I
plow
don't
the
know.
other frontage? Or
I don't know who plows.
long-term, what's gonna happen out on Olman?
That I don't
We
know.
haven't had yet.
I don't know who maintains that road, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, I got it.
I don't know who maintains the road.
Is this south of 23rd Avenue, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
City Plaza.
City?
We had a joint project with the county. We had a joint project with the county several years ago, in my first term, I'll say, where they ground up the asphalt and then we placed it and overlaid and did the work on it. So we do joint projects with the county.
Okay.
Sorry.
So was your client aware of any licenses that are for sale in Mitchell that you're aware of? Because I've heard of at least one, if not two.
You know that, I do not know the answer to that question. If you did want to know, I could look, and truthfully, this is Don Peterson's client, and he couldn't be here tonight, so I was filling in for him on this issue.
What happens if we say no?
If we deny the annexation,
Yeah.
well, it just doesn't enter the city limits.
But we have no cause as far as you, because we're just looking at the land itself.
Right.
The license has nothing, sorry. We're just looking at the land itself. The license has nothing to do, it's a loophole. We've lived through this, I don't know for how many years, and if it's something that people are not happy with, just like Mel did, you're gonna have to get a hold of our legislators and see if they can settle it on their end. But I don't know if we have any grounds to say that, because majority of the owners have agreed to have it annexed in.
We did this 3 years ago, across from James Valley Ag.
Yeah.
I mean, James Valley Nursery, and it's the same process.
So, Neil, does it have to be contiguous, or could, somebody
Because
from?
it'd be right across the right of way.
Just to let everybody know, due to the fact of the ownership and the company that is looking at buying this piece of property, conflict with my wife's employment, I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we can say no. I'll move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, action on resolution R 2017-04, a plat of lots A-1A and A-1D of J.L. Oberance, First Edition, a subdivision of Government Lot 4 in Section 3, T-103 North, R-60 West of the 5th PM, Davidson County, South Dakota.
This plat was submitted to the Planning Commission for their review. It is outside our 1 mile jurisdiction, so that it's subject to county ordinances. And my understanding is the County Planning Commission and the county commissions have approved it. And, but it's within 3 miles of the city, so the city also has to concur with it, so.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The action on resolution R 2017-05, a plat of Lot 10, Block 2 of CJM, Second Edition in the northwest quarter of Section 32, T-104 North, R-60 West of the 5th PM, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
Again, this was submitted to the Planning Commission for their review, and they did recommend approval. It's on that Anthony Avenue, north of in the lake.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action on resolution R 2017-06, a resolution designating a temporary alternate landing zone.
Well, this is kind of an interesting one. Basically, our city ordinance prohibits landing an aircraft within the city limits other than at the airport, unless the council gives permission to do so. The Lake House was planning an event for actually this Friday where people would come in, they dine at the restaurant, and then they take a helicopter tour and get an aerial view of the city. So they kind of last minute found out about this ordinance, approached, I believe they came to Lyndon first, and Lyndon referred it on to me, and we put together this resolution here kind of at the last minute. A couple conditions in there, that it be used solely for this event, that the pilot follow any applicable flight guidelines, and that they provide a certificate of insurance naming the city as additionally insured.
And Jeremy Jensen, I believe you're back here, is the owner of Lake House. You can come on up here, Jeremy, quick. He loves to speak to people anyway. But I told him, say, free advertisement. Come on up. Anyway, he brought this to me a while back too, and I told him, I said that more than likely there's probably something in the law that pertains to this. So I think I believe he contacted Lyndon, and Lyndon guided him adjusted and stuff like that. So why we're here tonight for this. But I know things that you've explained to me a little bit, Jeremy, but I just didn't know if you wanted some clarification on the fact of what they're trying to do is not like it's not the first time rodeo. With this gentleman that I believe, the helicopter, and you can explain more, I believe he's done this before for other events over Sioux Falls and things like that. So it's not like we're bringing somebody in here that doesn't know what's really going on in airspace kind of that.
Yeah, essentially what happened was we got hooked up with a guy that does aerial tours, different helicopter events and stuff like that. Skyway Helicopters, he's based out of Sioux Falls. Kind of what happened, now we got hooked up with this guy. He had an event at Straw Bale Winery over in Sioux Falls. Went and did that back in November. He had kind of like a dinner aerial tour package. You could go out to the facility. They do wine tasting type of deal, and then appetizers. And part of the package was they'd get you on the helicopter, and they took you around Sioux Falls for 15 minutes fly. I went down by Falls Park downtown. It was kind of a neat deal. Just happened to be talking to the pilot as we're riding along there, and I asked him, what he does, and he does stuff in Minneapolis and all over the place. This guy does this, and I kind of asked him, would you ever come to Mitchell? And he said, I'd probably come and do that. So we had him out, looked at our property, and what we do is we talked on landing him right up at the top of the hill there, right on the concrete patio. There's no overhead lines or anything like that. And question we did field to him is, what channels do we have to go through to make sure, we're following the rules with this deal. He said, no, you should be fine, should not have any issues. This guy's an FAA licensed commercial pilot. He's got to follow the same rules and regulations as any jetliner pilot does. He's got height restrictions and all that. Didn't really get into that kind of stuff with him, but he said the only thing that he does is he just needs to be in contact with the airport while he's doing that, just for his airspace stuff. Other than that, he said, Sioux Falls, he flies through commercial airspace. I mean, we flew right by the airport. He's in contact with them. So we went off of him and said, you guys shouldn't have a problem. So we kind of started booking some events. I will just throw in there, we did have the event planned for this Friday. We did postpone that, just not knowing what was going to happen here. Kind of wanted to stay on, the good side, make sure we were following all the rules that were set forth. We did learn that in Mitchell that there was a city ordinance for a temporary landing zone. Brought that to the pilot's attention. He said, geez, they don't do that in Sioux Falls, Minneapolis, anywhere like that. And I said, well, we better hold off until we get this figured out. But that's essentially what we were looking at doing. And it wouldn't be like a late night deal. We'd maybe start at like 4 p.m. We'd run 15-minute intervals up to about 9 or 9:30, shut it down about that time. But we were going to do a dinner drink package and then essentially put you on the helicopter. You fly around, go around Lake Mitchell out by the interstate, Cabela's area, zip you around the Corn Palace and bring you back. So that's what we were looking at, just right on the top of the hill there.
You're not going to do it on the 20th?
No, we wanted to see what was going to happen here. I mean, and not knowing, we had people booked in. We're just issuing refunds and just saying, hey, we'll reschedule for a later date. It's a pretty cool deal. Thought it'd be something cool to bring to Mitchell. I mean, something you'd have to go to a bigger area to see. So,
If this were summer, that would be one thing. But it's winter.
Yep.
And, if you were doing it today, holy cow, great. If you were doing it, earlier this season, maybe you'd need a helicopter to rescue you from the helicopter. I don't know. So what are the weather contingency plans? And we've got to approve a particular date, so
yeah.
what are you thinking?
Well, if we had to get you a date, I mean, that's something we'd definitely bring back. I mean, obviously going to start booking a month to a month and a half in advance and something like this. Weather conditions, I think when we did it, it was right after Thanksgiving. I think the temperature was 5 or 10 degrees outside. He's got, equipment, his helicopter. It's just like riding in a limousine, I'll be real honest with you.
I guess I wasn't thinking of cold. I was thinking of wind, and I was thinking of snow. And
Yeah, what he does, conditions, he can fly when it's cold, windy, and stuff like that, doesn't bother him. He says the only time he cannot do it is when it's foggy. What they do, he says, and that's happened before, he said, we just reschedule for a later date or say, hey, can you guys come back Sunday? Which we would work with our customers on that end. I guess in that situation in Sioux Falls, where this isn't an issue of going through city council, he just schedules as he sees fit. I guess that's something we'd have to talk about here, if something would happen and, okay, we can't do it Friday, or we're gonna have to push everybody off a week, come back and see ya. This is kind of a first-time thing, so we're looking for some input too.
Sioux Falls, is he landed in the city, or you gotta go out to the airport and get on him?
No, he actually lands at the winery. They land right out, in front, you walk 50 feet out the door and get on. So that's what we'd look at doing there. It's right out the door and you're in.
So with the way it's put together, Justin, like exactly what Mel's saying, they can't do it that day for some reason, it's fog. And they want to reschedule their customers a week later. What they got to do? They got to come back to council, or and what if we're not meeting between that time and that, or can we make a bigger window so he can reschedule if he had to, like a month or something? I don't know.
Well, I think what you can do is approve it without a specific date. You can have it be in effect for a single event, the date, subject to be set at a later time.
And everybody else is willing to do that. I think that's something we got to consider, because mine was individual up, and I don't know the dollar amount, neither do I care, but I'm pretty sure it's got a pretty price tag with it to try to make it all work and then reschedule your customers and everything like that.
Well, it's something I
They have a
will.
little flexibility to reschedule if they need to.
I will add, it's something we'd look at doing again. We had options out there for like the Valentine's Day thing, and if it works out, we might do this several times over again.
I think they used to do these at the Still Empire Fair, and I don't know if they still do or not, but I know that they used to, and it was very popular.
Could be the same guy. He was telling me all the stuff that he does. He does commercial flights like this for different people. oil pipeline stuff was going on. He was flying different guys back and forth. So this is a busy guy. I mean, this is what he does 8 hours a day.
Justin, 2 or 3 years ago, we let a float plane go on Lake Mitchell. It flies out. What would be the difference here?
There are, I don't recall the entire ordinance off the top of my head here, but that condition is treated separately under the ordinance. So it's specifically treated differently under the ordinance.
I just think we need to try to, if we can, if the council's in favor of it, removing that, giving him option to reschedule if something happens, and else.
If somebody's looking for a motion to approve, I would just say to do so on the condition that the date be removed and to be later set by the mayor.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. I don't know if I want to be the guinea pig or not. Hearing and action on resolution R2017-07, a resolution approving the proposed lease agreement regarding Mitchell Baseball Association's training facility and authorizing execution thereof.
I'll let Justin comment on the lease. There really isn't many changes in terms of what we were talking about. The city is going to continue to retain ownership of the building. The main points I wanted to just point out here is the moving of the location. I don't know, Stephanie, if you have a map of that. We're going back to the original location, and that had to do with the parking area requirement that they're going to have. And since they are going to have a parking requirement with the facility, we're going to have to give them, lease the land and for the building and for the parking as well. The best location under those circumstances, in the absence of a master plan, is the vacant lot across the street on Iowa and 15th. And then the other item that might be up for discussion is also, I don't think Dean or Mitchell Baseball is willing to adjust the number of years, but it is for 20-year agreement on the lease.
So it's going back to the location the neighbors are adamantly against.
That's correct, and there could be someone here that might want to comment. Sure.
I think the council already. They're with me. But we're all scared.
That's all right.
You're all scared. Don't be scared.
I'm Vicki Sigmund Heimstra. We live directly across the street from where the building is being proposed to be built. I believe that you all have paperwork on it, signatures from pretty much every person who owns a home or rents one of the twin homes that live on the 900 blocks of West 15th and West 16th Avenues. We're not opposed to the Baseball Association's building. It's where they want to put it. We did not talk to the neighbors about how they felt about what was going to be built. We just asked how they felt about where it was going to be built. And I don't know if you want me to read the statement you already have or not.
I have a question for you. I understand your position. Where my wife grew up, when she grew up, it was all open field across the street. And now that's the extension of 7th Street in Edgerton and all that kind of thing. So, you know, that's city land. We could put a ballpark there. We could put something else there. And I'm torn between your legitimate concerns and the pictures and the fact that when you buy a home next to property that somebody else owns, you don't get to tell them what to put on it. So how do you resolve, you know, maybe living next to a ballpark or living next to a parking lot or, something else that the city might decide to put on land that the city owns.
Well, I don't think that's my own personal feeling. We don't like the looks of it. My neighbors don't like the looks of it. But we have other reasons that we're wondering why we'd want to take a parking lot. The city pays thousands of dollars to buy houses to tear down to make a parking lot. Now, if we're going to eventually, I think there's a plan that we could expand our ball diamonds to 2 more ball diamonds out there. Where are those people going to park? Are they going to park in my driveway? That seems to be like one of our biggest things is we're taking valuable parking space and basically giving it away. I also mentioned in my personal notes to you that, well, not only myself, but several of my neighbors feel that our taxes should be lowered then because our houses won't be as valuable having, if I lived on a farm and I looked out at that shed and I knew that I had $2 million worth of combines in it, it might feel a little different. But I'm looking out at somebody else's shed, basically. And I know that you can put whatever you want there, but I think, we're looking at parking for the old soccer field. They're using it for football now, flag football. So they do use the parking lot. And if part of it's taken up by a big building, we're going to have more parking in the streets. We're going to have more kids getting into cars in the streets that could be dangerous. We don't know what kind of lighting there's going to be. Another thing too is I think the Baseball Association has to have a certain amount of paved parking. Okay, well, the other half of the lot, I've been told, will not be changed. It will stay the same. It'll be gravel. How are we going to keep people, even if there's a separate entrance, how are you going to keep people from coming through the gravel part to get over to the building and, causing more dust and things than if it wasn't there? I mean, I'd like to see the whole thing paved, but obviously that's not going to happen because it would eliminate a lot of dusting for me. But, we kind of feel like, why does this building have to be right there? We own a lot of land. The city has a lot of land south of the ballparks. Why couldn't it go down there somewhere? Or does it have to even be there? If this is going to be used mainly for inclement weather, are you going to let your kids ride their bikes or walk to this building in the middle of winter? They're still going to have to ride there. They're going to have to drive. Is there another place that could be just as easy? I mean, is there a spot out by the soccer fields that they could get donated to them? Or, it doesn't have to be beside the ballpark. I don't know. Do you guys think of anything I'm forgetting here? You're doing a good job. Oh.
I'm sure I know what you're saying.
Is this lot not currently zoned like residential and whatever, and we're voting now to change it into the parks?
That's the next thing.
Right, but you say it's the city land, you can do whatever you want with it, but technically it's still zoned residential right now, which is where we live, in the residential area. So, I mean, yeah, you can do whatever you want if it's approved later. I'm just saying, it's not like we didn't, yes, we knew something could go into that lot, but we didn't buy it knowing this was going to happen.
And I think you can tell we have a lot of names on there. And some of those names are people that are paying higher taxes than a lot of people in this town are. And there are 4 renters listed on there too. And they rent some of the highest twin homes in the city. So when we're talking to these people, we're talking about a neighborhood that prides itself on what it looks like. And we're not saying this is a bad building. It's just not the building we want in that place. I'd be perfectly happy for them to have it somewhere else and think, what a lovely building. But, I'm still waiting for them to build the other half of the Coke building, because it looks like a half a building to me. But we can't do anything about that. That's in, that's in private land. So I'm just saying that's, in private land where we want it to stay. And we want ours to stay a parking lot. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there any other questions then?
You said you moved it back because there was no other choice, or something about the options? What was that?
It's just the parking. We got through the parking. We determined we needed so many parking spaces. I can't remember what it was. It was like 28. Yeah, and so we would have to, if we put it in the field, we would still have to either give them parking. And I'm not an architect, so I can't tell you how close they need to be to the building. But if we put it, we could put we would have to still give them the parking lot across the street and then the building as well.
Maybe you can answer that question, Justin, but for some people that's new, we jumped around in several spots on the liaison on the park board. We jumped around from Cadwell thing over to the softball area, to the green grass, and the parking lot, back away from the parking lot. I mean, it's been multiple spots. When ultimately it came down, like I said, Justin might have some legal answer for it, but it came down to the fact that they had to have parking available because it's on a city property, I believe is what the whole purpose of it, but it has to have so many parking spots for the number of people that could be in the facility. If when they go across the green grass, not that we can't do it there, they can't, the street cannot be counted as parking spots. It has to be a parking lot, so it jumps across the street to the current parking lot that's there. Some of the concern that got brought up, once again, not that we can't go to green grass, but it's safety. If they're gonna be parking in the parking lot now, more walking back and forth, they believe also the utilization of this building being in the parking lot, people parking in the parking lot, not on the street as much as they currently do now, and going back and forth across 15th, which they're going to be doing, can also save, safety in the long run too. We're never gonna stop parking on 15th. We all know that when the soccer fields are going or whatever else, but they do believe the fact of the building they're located too, I think will help out in some parking spots. Now, I'm not trying to speak for Mitchell baseball. I know you guys just want this done. If it's the green grass, they're good for it. We just believe in the park board also that feasibility, the parking lot is the best location,
So you're the liaison of the park board, Marty?
Yep.
So was that a recommendation, or that's what your suggestion was, or giving you the information to bring to us? Is that correct?
I believe what we ended up, and re-quote me on this too, Nathan, is we approved both locations. However, the parking lot was the better one too, but we did not single that out. We wanted to make sure this thing happens, so we brought to the council both locations, the green grass and the parking lot.
Either would be accepted.
Correct. Either would be accepted by Mitchell Baseball Association.
I'm Tim Bottom from Morgan Thieler on behalf of the Mitchell Baseball Association. The location isn't as vital to the Baseball Association. We looked at every possible conceptual location around that area as well. Their main focus was, of course, the baseball facilities at Cadwell Park. The training facility needs to be at Cadwell Park. And the input that we were given back from, I worked extensively with Justin over the last month and a half, and we've gone through this lease 1,000 times and scrutinized every word and paragraph in it. And we started off with some difficulty and some difference of opinion on what some of the provisions should look like. And we're happy that we're here tonight with one lease that's been agreed upon by all parties. And we took the recommendation from the park board and from Justin through the city officials on where the location best suited the city and the Mitchell Baseball Association. And so I would just like to commend the city for the way they've handled this. Justin in particular, who I've dealt with, along with Mitchell Baseball, who's, this is a private group donating 100% of private citizen funds, promising to pay rent for this facility that they're going to put under control of the city, maintain the facility, take care of it, insure it, all for the benefit of our youth. And so I think this is a great project.
Tim, before you leave, I know you kind of got into this the 11th hour, and actually we kind of had indicated that it probably would be a good idea. Mel's not here now, but he's the one that suggested it. So are you perfectly okay with the contract as it is written? Because obviously it was leaning way toward the city at first, and of course, you know, we want to be good landlords too.
Well, Justin did a good job of advocating for his client, I'll say that. And we went round and round and shook hands when it was done, but the Mitchell Baseball Association is comfortable with the lease as written. And the only proviso, I guess, in addition to the lease, is that Justin and I discussed this, and in the language of the resolution, should the city, the council be inclined to pass it tonight, would be that the Mitchell Baseball Association would have a year to enter into the lease to make sure that the fundraising sources and the viability of the project going forward from a financial standpoint is something that they're comfortable with. And so that's the only condition that, obviously, it doesn't work to put a condition in a lease that hasn't been signed yet, and so that would have to be included in the resolution.
And basically, all we're doing there is saying, yes, we're approving it tonight, you've got a year to sign. So that's really all that means.
The lease itself addresses the rest of the timelines. The Mitchell Baseball Association has a 2-year window to have the project completed so that it doesn't drag on and you don't run into problems there, and the lease would be terminated. But based on the obvious problem with making a enforceable provision in a lease that hasn't been signed yet, that's the only other outside provision. Other than that, we're comfortable with it. We're satisfied with it, I'll put it that way.
Just wanted to touch a little bit again on the location. I had Stephanie pull up the map you can see on the projector. The small chunk that you see on the upper left side of that image would be the actual part that's leased to Mitchell Baseball. Now that's land just for the building. The parking lot that they would be building would actually still be on city property, so it would still be available for public use. And so would the remainder, you know, the remaining 75% of that lot would still be available for public parking.
After looking at the map that we have here in front of us of the complex, I do understand the residents that are just to the east of that parking lot and to the east of the proposed site. I understand their feelings, you know, of having their view being basically taken from them. And I have to wonder what the possibility is of moving it directly across the street, and instead of having the length of the building being north to south, having it being east to west as it is shown here in the reddened area here. I mean, I look at that proposed location corner there where we don't have anything that's open green as still being a good option for at least a couple more diamonds that could fit into there.
Well, if we're talking about the location that's being brought forward tonight, that's marked out in red there, we did talk, or the Park and Rec Department did talk about moving the location to the south side of 18th and rotating the building. But really, they didn't feel as comfortable with that alternative because of expanding those existing ballparks or other plans that might utilize that location better than the building would. They're still in the process of their master plan, and they felt that the location on the north side of the street was less likely to interfere with any of those future plans that they haven't identified yet.
Well, and I mean, I don't know that it has to be rotated. I'm thinking if it's left in the same horizontal position that it is, or situating east or west as it is not taking that much space out of that proposed location that's on the very east end of the current
It was enough space that it would stop a ball field from being able to fit there.
Why can't it go south? I know maybe I'm not familiar with it, but why can't it be south on all that land that you're gonna vote on rezoning tonight?
There's no reason why it can't. It's the field is the best location, is what we've determined for our needs, and not knowing what our future plans are. That's the only thing that, but either location would be we would move forward if that's the direction you wanted to go.
In addition, those lands to the south have soil conditions that are less favorable to build on.
Yeah, the further south you get, yes.
And I'm going to echo a little bit Nathan said, and not speak for the park board or the Metro Baseball Association, but just myself as sitting up here is, we've talked how many times about the master plan of what we're going to do out there for all our parks that we have, and we've looked at putting several different positions on there, and don't know what our future is going to bring, but I think we all know when you take away a piece of green space that could be possibly used, it makes it less more inviting for any future things that we have. We're sitting here today, who's sitting here in 10 to 12 years, they're going to make their own decisions on what they need to do too. That parking lot, from what I've seen, doesn't get utilized the way it is. I think the best location for this building is over there. Just the fact that we're using a piece of property that the city owns, that can be utilized properly and get great use out of it. I know everybody's concerned, or some people for sure, about the visibility that they're going to have. You can have that in your backyard. I live on 13th Street. My neighbors put a big addition on their backyard. I lost every view I wanted to, but it is what it is. You know, I didn't know what they were going to build when I bought my house, but they did what they wanted to, and it worked. So. I just think that, from my own personal view, I think the location of the parking lot is going to be best, and I like it for safety purposes is the biggest thing too. I think kids can park in the parking lot and walk in that building and not have to worry about walking across 15th Street when this building is going to be utilized the majority of the time, which is in the wintertime. I don't see any other discussion, and we can have more discussion. I'm going to make a motion to approve. Okay, yeah. Is there one before you come up? Just stand there. We can have,
He's holding the wall up.
and we can have more discussion. I'm going to make a motion to approve the ordinance and the location of the job of the current site.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? No. Motion carries. Okay, first reading of ordinance number 02107-01, an ordinance of the city of Mitchell that changes the zoning district classification of the real property legally described as a plat of Block 1 of Cadwell Park, First Edition in Iowa Street, a subdivision of the northwest quarter of Section 16, T103 North, R60 West of the 5th PM, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, and a plat of Shevlin's First Edition in the west one-half of Section 16, T103 North, R60 West of the 5th PM, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, a plat of Shevlin's Second Edition in the southwest one-quarter of 16, T103 North, R60 West of the 5th PM, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, from high-density residential district, R4, to public lands and institutions, District PL, and the official zoning map be changed to reflect the same.
Again, the planning commission did hold a hearing on this rezoning request. If you could see the material in there, there's 3 separate parcels. One is obviously the one that you were just talking about, and then there's 2, Shevlin's first and Shevlin's second. And they are directly, they're kind of sandwiched in between the softball or baseball diamonds and the bypass. They're just 2 separate pieces there. And so they're currently zoned R4, which is high-density residential, such as for those like residential uses such as multifamily and so forth. What this does is it changes the zoning designation of public lands for all 3 pieces. So again, the Planning Commission did recommend rezoning all 3. You can see the plats that are in there. You can see how there was a platted. So that's why there's 3 separate legals.
Move to place on first reading.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Executive session. Motion to enter into executive session according to SDCL 1-25-23, consulting with legal counsel or reviewing communications from legal counsel about proposed or pending litigation or contractual matters. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.